Chapter 20 Chapter 20 A brief appearance. Yi Shiwen and Wang Lai both rushed to the competition venue. Wang Lai with some excitement said, "Man, this time you have to get a good rank." Wang Lai did not participate this time. To get into top 100 ranks, at least one should be at the 4th stage. But he just had a breakthrough recently. He knew very well that he didn't have a chance this time. In fact, he had never been that ambitious. And Yi Shiwen nodded. "But you have to be careful. I heard the news that Mying is planning to deal with you." Wang Lai said seriously. "Mying has put the word out, encouraging others to cripple you as a revenge for his younger brother." "Cripple me? Let's see if he has the skill," Yi Shiwen said with a sneer. The venue was packed with crowd. Yi Shiwen arrived on the scene first and took out the serial number 127 for himself. There were 2 numbers of same serial number. The first opponent would be the one who drew out the same serial number. Once the time arrived, key figures within the Yuan school arrived successively. They were using the technique, flying high fall step, to fly above the high platform. TL can also be called volley virtual step. In the eyes of all the disciples flashed a look of envy, although flying high fall step was not an actual flight, but it was not something they could easily attain. Everyone suppressed their breaths to this performance. They were Yuan school seniors and the true backbone that supported the school. Yuan clan people and Zhang clan were already the most powerful parallel forces of the Qingfeng Mountain and nearby region. And if their performance was good, they could receive a reward from some elder that would lead to a meteoric rise. This had happened in the past. Yi Shiwen and those elders saw his father Yi Kongming's figure among the group of elders. It did not seem conspicuous. The venue occupied a very wide land area. 200 platforms, TL, arenas or rings, were placed for the contest. Wang Lai and Yi Shiwen both went to the number 127 arena. "You are number 127 ring's other contestant." Yi Shiwen just saw a big and tall disciple who walked over to him laughing and said, "You really have a bad luck. Unexpectedly have bumped into Shifeng brother. Just admit defeat. Shifeng brother has acquired the peak of 5th stage. Even if to get into the top 50 ranks, he is definitely capable." That tall disciple continued. If you do not hurry up and admit defeat now, when the time comes, it will be difficult to give up before losing some of your body parts." Wang Lai's complexion also changed. "I did not expect it would actually be Shifeng. Oh man, it's too bad that your first opponent turned out to be that Shifeng. His methods are very malicious and ruthless." 3 years ago in the competition, there were several disciples who admitted defeat. Their bones were broken, causing 6 months' worth of injuries. "Quite a bully," Yi Shiwen said. "Bully, ha ha ha. For a long time no one has called me a bully." Suddenly a burst of laughter spread in the arena. "You don't have a good luck, I suppose, as someone has asked me to break your legs." Yi Shiwen looked up. There he saw a tall tower-like young man, with a fiendishly grinning face looking at Yi Shiwen. It was Shifeng. "Boy, do you dare to come up now?" Shifeng grinned. "So long as you count out a 100 times, I'll let you off." "That depends on you." Yi Shiwen sneered and jumped on. "Now that you have received benefits from others to break my legs, I'll make you bear the consequences for your sins. Young boy, you really dare to come up a move? With just 1 hit I will beat you." Shifeng laughed loudly. 127 arena fight begin. The referee saw both of them standing and ready, then opened his mouth and spoke. As for the 2 previous dialogues, he turned a deaf ear, as if he did not hear anything. As referee's voice just fell, Shifeng shot out like a shell from the catapult. Although tall, but his speed was incredibly fast, he rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Although this person was insolent, but his strength was the real deal. Although his agility was not on a high level, but the explosive force was great. In a blink of an eye, he had rushed to the front of Yi Shiwen. Shifeng grinned fiendishly and opened his big hand to directly twist Yi Shiwen's head. "Elders Yi, is that your son fighting on the 127th platform?" said the elder sitting close to Yi Kongming. "It is my son." Yi Kongming smiled and nodded. "I recall, more than a decade ago, Elder Yi was embracing him when he returned. I just saw him once, but in a blink of an eye, more than a decade has passed. He is already this big now," the elder said with emotion. "His opponent can be a tough one." The elder, while staring at the ring, said, "Inborn natural power. He is more formidable than an average person. It doesn't matter. This will allow him to gain experience." Yi Kongming smiled, as if he didn't care, but the eyes were tightly locked in the ring, somewhat worried. Bang! Yi Shiwen stuck his palm out. It hit fiercely right on Shifeng's big hand. The two sides directly caused a collision, making a sound of huge air explosion. Yi Shiwen stood there calm and motionless. Shifeng had an inborn natural power. Although he had just acquired the peak of 5th stage, but the strength in his hand was absolutely over the 6th stage, comparable to the masters of 6th stage, but he still could not move Yi Shiwen even the slightest. Impossible! Shifeng's one pair of cow-like eyes was full of surprise looking at Yi Shiwen. Unbelievably, even if it was a 6th stage master, his strength was not one bit inferior, but unexpectedly, Yi Shiwen didn't budge. Boom! Accompanied with a burst of thunderstorm sound, Yi Shiwen's palm shot out a group of torpedo-shaped chi, with a lightning speed, enormous and mighty, a palm pressed against Shifeng's chest. Bang! Shifeng's tower-like body was flown up when shot by Yi Shiwen's palm. His blood sprayed all over, bones in his body were broken in half, and he fell directly off the stage. What? How is this possible? The audience was in uproar. All the people paying attention to this battle could not believe their eyes. They had been very optimistic about this Shifeng, but he couldn't even stop Yi Shiwen's one move, was actually sent flying out of the arena. No one knew whether he was alive or dead. Cheating, he must be cheating. Several disciples who were close to Shifeng suddenly found it difficult to accept, started yelling, and said, "He has definitely plotted against Shifeng, brother. Made a brief appearance and sent Shifeng flying. How is this possible?" "Shut up," the referee said in a cold voice, who was right or wrong. He saw very clearly, did not need those juniors to teach him what to do. This competition, Yi Shiwen wins. Now he will enter the second round. Idiots! Yi Shiwen glanced at those disciples. Shifeng, however, was just a small pawn. Presumably, Ma Ying was the one behind, but there was no rush. Ma Ying was popular. To win the championship, sooner or later, they would meet for sure. Good. Unexpectedly, I was totally wrong, the elder sitting close to Yi Kongming said with a smile. Chapter 21. Chapter 21. In one move, seems like he is practicing well? Yi Kongming seemed serious in speech and manner, but smiles spilled on his face from time to time because he was in a good mood. He had thought, with Yi Shiwen's current cultivation, if he could just pass through the first round, it would be very good, but he had not expected that he could so easily break through the first round. So naturally the second round would unlikely pose any problem. He might even break into the third round, or into the top 100. Naturally, he was in a good mood. After the first round was over, Yi Shiwen did not have to wait too long for the second round. His second opponent was a boy of same age as him. He was wearing a Chinese robe, and his face was filled with pride. "Wang Xiaoqi," Yi Shiwen said. The boy looked lightly at Yi Shiwen and said, "You might as well surrender as early as possible, so as to avoid the time of suffering." At this time the disciples were talking amongst themselves. Someone recognized this boy's origins. It's actually Wang Xiaoqi. He practices Tiger Cannon Fist, which is a high-level martial arts, very powerful. Last time he was just an inner sect disciple, but relying on the power of Tiger Cannon Fist, he beat a lot of senior-level disciples and made them flee ignominiously. TL means to cover one's head and sneak away like a rat. Idiom, to flee ignominiously. He almost squeezed into the top 100, and then he was received by an elder as his own personal apprentice. He is said to have already acquired the peak of 5th stage, and those who have acquired 6th stage also may not be his opponent. Really, no wonder he is so proud, but this Yi Shiwen is also far from simple. Just now that Shifeng couldn't block his one move. With one hit, he fell unconscious, alive or dead, we don't know. It seems like it may end up in a fierce competition between two evenly matched opponents. Wang Xiaoqi seemed to have heard the commentary going on in the crowd of disciples. He immediately sneered and said, "You think just because you defeated Shifeng you can be my match? I'm not a barbarian like Shifeng. He has brute force but doesn't know how to use it, and is also an idiot." "Cut the crap," Yi Shiwen said indifferently. "See if I don't show you some power," Wang Xiaoqi shouted loudly. Behind him appeared a huge amount of energy. The mighty and fierce spiritual chi scattered in all directions instantly. It seemed as if a fierce tiger was descending from the mountain. TL. This was the tiger cannon fist, practiced to the most profound realm, and the surrounding air had condensed into a head of tiger. Bang! Wang Xiaoqi took a step, his figure suddenly disappeared, and the very next moment it appeared right in front of Yi Shiwen. Then his fist exploded into a punch, roaring tiger in the mountain forest. The moment seemed as if a fierce tiger was roaring in a mountain forest. Wang Xiaoqi had turned into a tiger, enveloped in evil power. An elder watching from the elder seats looked at Wang Xiaoqi with a smiling face. He was the master of Wang Xiaoqi, Hu Changlao. Just then a nearby elder laughed and said, "Last time, Wang Xiaoqi almost broke into the top 100, setting a record. This tiger cannon fist, compared to 3 years ago, must have advanced by leaps and bounds. This time he can at least break into the top 20. Wang Xiaoqi's age is too small. Duration and degree of cultivation is also very different. This will let him experience and gain insights from the superior disciples of this province. He still does not know the immensity of the universe," said Elder Hu Changlao quite seriously, but his face couldn't conceal the happy expression and contentment. However, this person is not an opponent for cheer. Suddenly, one of the disciples exclaimed. They actually saw that with just a step, Yi Shiwen's whole figure suddenly disappeared in front of Wang Xiaoqi. It was precisely the celestial steps. Wang Xiaoqi's whole body passed through the location where Yi Shiwen was earlier. Only then he realized that something was wrong. Not good. Wang Xiaoqi finally recovered his self-confidence and felt the problem. Too late. Yi Shiwen appeared behind Wang Xiaoqi and slapped on Wang Xiaoqi's body. Bang! Wang Xiaoqi didn't even get a chance to react. He was directly slapped out of the ring by Yi Shiwen, but Yi Shiwen, did not seriously injure him. Wang Xiaoqi was sent out flying with just one hit. He still could not believe that he did not block even one move from Yi Shiwen. A moment later, Wang Xiaoqi smiled bitterly while cupping one hand over the other across the chest. He said to Yi Shiwen, "Yi brother, many thanks for showing mercy. In the past, I was really ignorant and narrow-minded. It unexpectedly is very ridiculous." TL is actually an idiom, to view the sky from the bottom of a well, idiom. Ignorant and narrow-minded. Wang Xiaoqi turned and left. His figure seemed a bit lonely. What? How is this possible? How could the Yi Shiwen be so powerful? Even Wang Xiaoqi was not his match. He unexpectedly flew out of the ring in one move. It's really incredible. The outcome of this fight caused a lot of disturbance. A lot of people had not expected that Yi Shiwen could actually defeat Wang Xiaoqi so easily, without even fighting as they had imagined. Wang Xiaoqi was considered a genius among the inner sect disciples. 3 years ago, he had entered the inner sect for the first time. Then he had almost broken into the top 100. This time his goal was to break into first 20 ranks, or even 10. Then he would become a popular candidate to be counted in the top future core disciples. He had encountered many adventures, and was also received as a disciple by an elder, but such a formidable genius had actually lost to Yi Shiwen. Moreover, was defeated in one move. It was simply hard to imagine. That Hu Changlao was suppressed with shame, very much like a pig's liver. Although a moment ago what he said was very modest. But everyone could see that he was satisfied with his disciple. But his voice just fell. Wang Xiaoqi was defeated by Yi Shiwen in just one move. This was equivalent to being severely thrown a slap in the face. Congratulations, Elder Yi. This son of yours really has stolen all the limelight. He broke through the second round in such a relaxed manner. Haha, I am afraid the top 10 ranks are not a problem anymore. Yes. All 3 children from Elder Ye's house are outstanding. From the elder seats on one side spread a burst of congratulatory voice, leaving Elder Hu with an ugly face. Yi Kongming simply could not speak that his son was different. He was actually very humble. In his heart, he was very satisfied with Yi Shiwen's performance. He unexpectedly had disappeared, and a month later, but his progress was actually so great that even that famous genius Wang Xiaoqi from 3 years ago was defeated in one move. But unexpectedly in his heart, he also had some expectations as to which path his youngest son would take. Humful. Hu Changlao's face looked ugly. He coldly uttered a sigh. He was just opportunistic. He relied on a good agility technique. He will fail eventually. Even getting into top 30 rankings is impossible for him. Elder seats were suddenly bustling up with noise. This Yishiwen is amazing. In the past, unexpectedly, no one actually knew about him. No one thought, seeing his outer appearance, that he possessed this much strength. And also, we do not know at what time he will be forced out. Yes, you saw. He was also carrying a long blade behind him, but there is no evidence that blade was used. Extraordinary. Also, many elders and a friend of who Changlao said, the third son from Elder Ye's house, who does not know that his power was mediocre, but it suddenly progressed by leaps and bounds. He certainly has swallowed some kind of material treasure, which promotes the progressing speed of the cultivation. But this realm is very unstable. If encountered a real master, he will collapse at the first blow. Spiritual cultivation slowly grows along the way, but this is an acquired realm. To rely on a material treasure to qualify. In the future, his achievements will stop. The elders were talking about in succession. However, high above the platform had its own enchantment, and the people underneath were not aware as to what the elders were talking about. Chapter 22. Chapter 22. Then I will show you enough. Yishiwen was naturally not aware of the face that he had become the talk of the elders, but he did not have time to care about that. Since his fight had ended early in the morning, he had a lot of time to see the competition of other people. After the first round of the competition was over, there were only 100 individuals left for the second round. Compared to the first round, the second round had many high-level contestants. Even the worst of them had also acquired the peak of fourth stage. Yishiwen also saw an extremely powerful master. He would shoot a huge burst of spiritual power to easily beat his opponents. All these people were the masters of sixth stage, and were already considered as elites in the inner sect. Yishiwen's third-round opponent was much powerful than Wang Xiaoqi. Even Shifeng was not his match. However, his cultivation was just at the peak of fifth stage and was easily slapped down by Yishiwen's palm. He easily got past the third round, which made him to receive a lot of attention from Yuan School's key figures. Most of the elders began to focus specifically on him, much like paying attention to those geniuses. Getting past the third round, he had easily entered into the top 50 ranks, and after the completion of fourth round, he would already be in the top 30. Elder whose complexion was getting increasingly ugly. He had claimed that Yishiwen would absolutely not enter into the top 50 ranks. However, he easily got past the third round, and was now in the top 50. If Yishiwen were to pass the fourth round, then he would lose his face. This would be like a slap on his face. TL. In Chapter 21, author has written Yishiwen would not be able to get into the top 30 ranks, but in this chapter, it was changed to top 50 ranks by the author. And it was not at all difficult for him to get past the third round. All he did was use one move to win the matches. No one could compel him to use a second move. No one could even compel him to use his martial arts. All he did was lightly clap his palm, and the opponent would fly out. Yishiwen had been using just one move to defeat his opponents while easily winning all the fights. This led to a sudden rise in his reputation among the disciples. Many people started to pay attention to his fights. The strength of this Yishiwen is simply unfathomable, and unexpectedly no one could actually force him to use his real moves. As to which martial arts technique he practices, no one knows. Look, he has a broadsword on his back. It's certainly a knife. No, someone saw his martial art as a palm technique, and it has a hint of thunderclap. It is definitely rushing thunderhand. Even his martial arts cannot be forced out. It's really amazing. But the next time he can't be so relaxed because his next opponent is going to be Tang Yin. He is already a master of the sixth stage, and he has easily hacked through all the challenges. It is really going to be a tough competition. Yishiwen also heard these arguments, but he did not mind them at all. I didn't expect that you could come this far. However, you'd better pray not to bump into me. When Yishiwen was meditating, a shadow came over. It was actually a strong youth in his 20s carrying a pair of huge copper hammer on his back. Otherwise, I will let you taste the same pain my brother had to suffer. You are mine? Yishiwen responded immediately. This person should be that mine, no doubt about it. Your younger brother has done all sorts of evil things, and so many people were forced by him to lose everything they had. This is retribution. I do not care what my brother has done, but today I will definitely avenge my brother. You'd better surrender soon, or I will tear off your limbs, said Ma Ying with an evil grin on his face. Yishiwen stayed calm and looked coldly at him. "What's wrong? Are you afraid? If you are scared, then escape quickly." "Ha ha ha," Ma Ying said while laughing. Many disciples were discussing about in the crowd. "I wouldn't have thought that there was actually hatred between Ma Ying and Yi Shiwen. Gee, this is probably going to be a lot of fun. TSK. I heard that Yi Shiwen severely injured Ma Yin in front of everyone and was bedridden for a long time. This was the main reason, and including Ma Ying's vengeful character, this matter couldn't be ignored. This Ma Ying is easily one of the top 5 figures, so Yi Shiwen won't just have his 4 limbs broken, right? Yi Shiwen is not someone to be trifled with so easily. So far, none of the opponents could force him to use a second move. "Hey, let me measure your strength. Let's see if you can win against Tang Yin." Ma Ying grinned fiendishly and suddenly dashed like a killer. Suddenly, a sledgehammer flew out from his back, with his big hands grabbing it, and he shoved it mercilessly towards Yi Shiwen, producing a howling wind-like sound. Ma Ying was an arrogant man, but his strength was not a joke. His cultivation was definitely at the peak of 6th stage, second to none among the inner sect disciples. His terrible power had firmly locked on Yi Shiwen, and the sledgehammer then smashed down immediately. This was to test Yi Shiwen's strength, but it was simply looking for an excuse to cripple him. Yi Shiwen took a few steps, and his figure, just like that of a celestial being, freely and easily escaped this hammer attack. But who would have thought that Ma Ying was also using the celestial step to catch up with him? However, Ma Ying's celestial step was filled with explosive power and strength. It was quite different. Ma Ying's eyes flashed with killing intent, grinning again and again. He trotted to keep up with Yi Shiwen, with a heavy sledgehammer in his hands as if it was nothing. Then he slammed it down fiercely. Boom! The sledgehammer smashed with immense power, creating a big hole in the ground. But Yi Shiwen had easily dodged this attack. "How could you actually?" Ma Ying looked astonishingly at him. He certainly figured it out that Yi Shiwen was using celestial step, which caused his hatred to grow even more. Yi Shiwen certainly took it from his brother's body, but he was not worried as he had been practicing celestial step for more than a year. So how could this guy be better than him? However, just now, Yi Shiwen had easily dodged his hammer attack and was unexpectedly at the 3rd level, Shao Chung, of celestial step. He was still at the 2nd level, entering the inner chamber of celestial steps, and there was still a long way to go to reach the Shao Chung. "Idiot!" Yi Shiwen sneered. "Die!" Ma Ying was suddenly furious. He completely erupted with anger. His spiritual chi quickly rose to the top, much more violent compared to the Wang Xiaoqi. However, Wang Xiaoqi was able to compete with masters of the early 6th stage in the competition 3 years ago, but Ma Ying was ranked among the top 5 masters in this session of inner sect disciples. He had easily won all his battles and was almost without a rival. "This time, I will turn you into a corpse." Ma Ying's spiritual chi had locked onto Yi Shiwen. A monstrous and overwhelming chi spread all over the place, and 2 sledgehammers roared and smashed as if 2 hills had pounded in general. Yi Shiwen could feel dozens of tyrannical gazes sweeping over him, out of which there were a lot with evil intentions. There were even the Xiantian-level masters among them. Just their gazes were enough to give him chills. Basically everyone was waiting for Yi Shiwen to use his martial arts. He knew that Yi Kongming was an elder at the Yi Yuan school, so he would naturally have friends as well as enemies. He did not know how many of these enemies were hidden in the shadows, waiting for his father to become a laughingstock. Since they want to see, I will show them enough. Any schemes and tricks, in the face of true strength, are like the floating clouds. The true strength that he had been hiding all this time completely erupted and shot up high into the sky. He directly acquired the peak of 6th stage. What? Yi Shiwen has already acquired the peak of 6th stage. Chapter 23. Chapter 23. Best shot. Numerous people who were paying attention to this fight had a feeling of countless eyeglasses breaking from falling down on the ground, and now they could see the truth very clearly. Ma Ying was powerful enough to be placed in the top 5 figures of the inner sect disciples. Since the competition had started, he had constantly used his extremely tyrannical strength to rush rampaging through his fights all the way to the present. However, no one would have expected that Yi Shiwen had actually hidden his true strength, and it was unexpectedly sufficient enough to be compared favorably with Inner Sect's top 5 disciples. Yi Shiwen finally shot his rushing thunder hand, fiercely causing a thunderstorm-like rumbling sound which echoed above the venue. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yi Shiwen directly shot a total 6 echoes. This attack was extremely fast, enough to leave after images. Haha, you dare to use your hands against my sledgehammer. You really are seeking death. Look how I smash your hands into smithereens. Ma Ying laughed hideously. He used his 2 hammers like mountains and directly pressed down with overwhelming power to block all the space around Yi Shiwen. Boom! With a loud sound of explosion, Yi Shiwen's hands directly slammed into the pair of sledgehammers, causing a huge shock wave. Suddenly, all of the people watching this battle were stunned, as they had imagined that both his hands would break apart and disappear completely from the scene. However, on the contrary, his pair of hands, like a formidable force, had directly destroyed the sledgehammers. Yi Shiwen's one hit had blown those sledgehammers into smithereens. Iron-back silver monkeys possess stronger body than ordinary, as if reinforced with a steel frame. It was difficult for the swords and spears to pierce their bodies, all thanks to that special liquor that they had regularly consumed. And this Monty had also consumed a huge amount of the same liquor which he had stolen from their cave, and that resulted in reinforcing his mortal body to a great extent. His power had already reached the strength of 19 tigers, while Ma Ying had only the strength of 9 tigers. Ma Ying wanted to overwhelm him using his power, but he didn't know that his strength was 10 levels short of Yi Shiwen, whose strength was far beyond his own. Pass like thunder and move like the wind. Yi Shiwen, after destroying the pair of sledgehammers, slammed his palm right into Ma Ying's robust body. Bang! Ma Ying simply had no time to resist, and with a bang, he flew out into the sky. Stop! Suddenly, a loud burst of sound rang in the sky. Yi Shiwen paid no attention to it, and suddenly the air exploded beneath his feet. Using the celestial step, he instantly pursued behind his flying body, with both his hands like a pair of shadows that filled the entire sky with a barrage of attacks and severely slapped Ma Ying's still flying body multiple times. Lightning and thunder. Ghostly thunder axe. Leveling storm 4 strokes. Boom! Ma Ying's tall figure fell fiercely on the ground. All the bones in his body had been broken, and his body looked in a very bad state. The most important thing was the sea of qi surrounding his body that was directly shattered in the barrage of attacks. This sea of qi was the essence of a warrior's cultivation, and was also the true storage place for the spiritual power. He had exposed this sea of qi, although he didn't die, but his cultivation had completely been destroyed, and in the future, it would be impossible for him to continue practicing. Yi Shiwen knew that this villain would retaliate endlessly until he got his revenge, but in presence of such a large crowd of people, it was impossible to kill him. So once he exposed his sea of qi, Yi Shiwen used this opportunity to completely cut off any future troubles. Yi Shiwen, how dare you? You did not hear me when I told you to stop. At this time, a figure dropping from the sky on the site. He actually saw Yi Yuan School's elder clad in black clothes and was glaring angrily at him. Yi Shiwen knew that this black-clad elder was called Wang Jian. He was the lord of Yi Yuan School's penalty palace and hence was in charge of punishing disciples, which was reason why ordinary disciples were very afraid of him. And most importantly, Wang Jian and Yi Kongming had never been on good terms, and this had led to a huge accumulation of resentment. Under the watchful eyes of the public, you have injured a disciple of the same school. If only our Yuan School's ancestor had not set that law which allows bringing in people like you to grow up in the school. It's definitely a disaster for our Yuan School, Wang Jian said while buckling up the big hat on his head. Injuring the disciple of the same school, with a big hat like that, you can't even see. Are all the people here blind? It was Ma Ying who attacked me first and wanted to kill me as well. I was just defending myself, Yi Shiwen said bluntly. Wang Jian and Yi Kongming had been hostile towards each other for a long time. Not to mention now that he had got a chance. He was simply looking for trouble. You really have a sharp mouth, kid. Wang Jian stared coldly at Yi Shiwen and said, "You say it was for self-defense, but you have unexpectedly damaged his cultivation. Moreover, Ma Ying is considered a genius in our Yuan school, and by damaging his cultivation, you have committed a serious crime. Then doesn't that mean one can't fight back in self-defense when he is being bullied? Just what kind of law is this?" Yi Shiwen retorted, then said, "Besides, if he is really a genius, then why couldn't he stop even one of my moves? He is nothing but a loser. And even if the school uses more resources in his development, it will be nothing but a waste of resources. I was only defending myself, and let the people do the justice, because you can't hide anything from them." Yi Shiwen said, "Well, I am the lord of the penalty palace, and I have full authority over giving punishments. You have injured a disciple from the same school, and the evidence is solid, so don't even think about denying your crime." Wang Jian suddenly used the tyrannical power of Xiantian level, which causes spiritual qi to explode and spread out like a big hand trying to grab Yi Shiwen. Then the qi turned into a claw trying to grab him by his shoulders. If he had been seized firmly by that claw, then his shoulder would have dislocated then and there. Quite vicious. Yi Shiwen suddenly took a step and trotted very fast, using his celestial step to retreat, but Wang Jian also caught up with him and tried to grab him with his claw. However, it almost missed him, resulting into a terrible air explosion. "Ah!" Yi Shiwen gave a loud shout. He was forced into a dead end, and Wang Jian used his tyrannical qi to firmly lock him down. Clang! Yi Shiwen suddenly withdrew a long blade from his back, causing a loud metal clanging sound, and instantly used the first move of Cold Moon Beheader technique called New Moon Beheader. 9 blade shadows suddenly appeared in the sky and fiercely rushed towards Wang Jian. These shadows were extremely fast and even contained some power from the rushing thunder hand. 9 blade shadows contained a very monstrous power and spread all over the sky, unexpectedly blocking all the space around Wang Jian with unimaginable power. No one had expected that his blade attack would actually be so powerful. This was his real strength. Since all this time he had been defeating his opponents with one move, he did not need to use his real strength, but when he was cornered, he had to resort to his most powerful attack. Swift and fierce knife-like wind was blowing in the venue, causing a stinging sensation, which was quite painful for the crowd. How is this possible? Wang Jian's eyes flashed with horror, as he had not expected Yi Shiwen to actually use this kind of powerful blade attack in such a desperate situation. Wang Jian suddenly took several steps, and his figure turned into a lightning flash and withdrew from the scope of this blade shadow attack, which had instantaneously covered a large area. He barely escaped from this blow. As he was going to attack again, suddenly a loud shout exploded in the sky. "Old fool, stop hurting my son!" A big hand covered all of the sky and descended towards Wang Jian, forming a few meters large palm made of qi. Wang Jian's hands also stretched out to go up to welcome the incoming attack. Boom! A terrible explosion spread in the range of tens of meters, causing even the air to explode. Chapter 24. Chapter 24 enters into the top 3. Wang Jian was pushed back several steps, and each step made a few inches deep footprint in the ground. This was all just to stop the enormous force present in Yi Kongming's previous attack. His face looked a little flushed, and it seemed like this time he had suffered a small defeat. A person's shadow fell into the crowd, having an extraordinary aura around it. It was Yi Kongming. All of the disciples present there were watching intently, because this was going to be a fight between 2 prominent school elders who were also Xiantian level masters, and this fight was definitely not something one could witness anytime. "Yi Kongming, are you going to cover for your son?" Wang Jian shouted. "Wang Jian, you think I don't know? Your plan is to use your official power for revenge. My son was only defending himself, but you dare to distort the facts and accuse my son falsely." Yi Kongming said in a cold voice, "I am the Lord of Penalty Palace, and for committing such an act, your son should be punished in accordance with the law. He should be abolished from practicing martial arts, and should also be expelled from the school." Wang Jian said in a stern voice, "Well, since when did Yuan school start punishing for self-defense?" My son only did this in self-defense, and that too under the watchful eyes of so many people who can testify for my son's innocence, so don't you dare teach me what's right or wrong. Don't make me report this to the ancestor, because then you will definitely lose your position as the Lord of Penalty Palace. Yi Kongming said without the slightest amount of doubt in his voice. Various thoughts started flowing into Wang Jian's mind, including the people present there. He himself knew very well whether Yi Shiwen was innocent or guilty. In fact, it was all because of the feud between him and Yi Kongming, and he wanted to vent his hatred on his son's body. He had planned to capture and hurt Yi Shiwen using a surprise attack, but unexpectedly Yi Shiwen was actually able to dodge it quite easily. If the ancestor got to know about this incident, he would naturally be very fond of such a young talent. Although Yi Shiwen had used his powers brutally, but it was after all in self-defense. Well, today you are defending your son, but sooner or later you will regret it. Wang Jian soon turned to leave without even looking once towards Ma Ying, as if he didn't care whether he lived or died. That Yi Shiwen is so fierce. I would never have imagined that there was such a monster hiding among the disciples, and no one knew about his existence until now. Not even a Xiantian master's fierce attacks could hurt him at all. Gee, that blade is simply invincible. I am afraid even the masters of the 7th stage can't escape its range. What sort of evildoer is he? Even his rushing thunder hand technique is extremely profound, and that blade is absolutely terrible. Yi child, I had not expected that in such a short period of time, you would obtain such a powerful fighting strength. And that blade technique must be an intermediate-level skill, right? Yi Kongming asked. Yes, this child practices the cold moon beheader technique. Since it was already exposed, there was nothing to hide anyway. Of course, he would not take the initiative to say that it was actually not an intermediate-level blade technique, but a Xiantian-level technique, and that it also had 2 more moves. TL, Cold Moon Beheader has 3 moves named New Moon Beheader, Missing Moon Beheader, and Full Moon Beheader. Good. Seeing his son's sudden burst of fighting strength, he was feeling very happy because now he could proudly proclaim that all his kids were geniuses. Haha, being your father, even I had underestimated your strength in the past, but to think that you had this kind of powerful fighting strength. Now you can easily compete for the 1st rank. Yi Kongming said while laughing. Well done. Yi Kongming didn't stay with his son and returned back to his seat among the elders. Thanks to the series of tragedies, a lot of time had passed, and the 4th round of the competition had already begun. A 20-year-old youth was standing on the stage and was also the opponent that Yi Shiwen was supposed to fight in the 4th round. His name was Tang Yan. Yi Shiwen jumped into the arena, then cupped his hands across his chest and said, Yi Shiwen, I made Brother Tang to wait for a long time. Tang Yan had a somewhat complex expression on his face. Yi Shiwen had used just a move to defeat Ma Ying, and he had also seen his battle with Wang Jian. He knew very well that he would never be an opponent for Yi Shiwen as originally. With his strength at the peak of 6th stage, he could have broken into the top 10, and the next time, he might have entered the ranks of the core disciples. However, he had not expected to actually encounter Yi Shiwen, and thanks to this, now it was impossible for him to enter into the 5th round. Struggling for a while, Tang cupped his hands across his chest and said, Brother Yi, I do not consider myself as your opponent, so I admit defeat. Tang Yan's admitting defeat was although an accident in the eyes of disciples. But it was also expected because Tang Yan was strong enough to be counted among the top 10 ranks. However, Yi Shiwen had completely and easily crushed Ma Ying and hence established his own status thoroughly. Ma Ying was one of the top 5 inner sect disciples, but while fighting Yi Shiwen, he still couldn't stop a single move. So it was quite obvious that Yi Shiwen had naturally replaced Ma Ying and positioned himself into the hearts of countless disciples as the new member of the 5 great disciples. So Tang Yan's admitting defeat was an anticipated accident. After Tang Yan admitted his defeat, Yi Shiwen's next opponent, who had also reached the peak of 6th stage, was unwilling to give up, but was slapped out of the arena in one move. Including the back-to-back victories in these 2 rounds, Yi Shiwen had easily broken into the top 6 ranks. In addition to him, 4 of the original inner sect's top 5 masters had impressively also entered the top 6 ranks. In addition to these 5 people, One person was also nominated into the top 6 ranks. He was an intimidating man of strong build, and his cultivation was already at the peak of 6th stage. Yi Shiwen had finally met a true master as his next opponent, who was ranked 3rd in the top 5 masters, named Zhang Xiang. After defeating him, he could enter the top 3. "Please advise me," Yi Shiwen said. "Brother Yi is quite strong. Even that Ma Ying was easily defeated by you," Zhang Xiang said. "But Ma Ying was the weakest of us 5 disciples, so it won't be easy for you to beat me." Yi Shiwen also knew that Zhang Xiang had been a part of the top 5 inner sect disciples for a long time. Zhang Xiang released all his power without any restraint, and surprisingly, he was at the middle of 7th stage. No wonder he said that Ma Ying was the weakest among them. Many of the disciples were amazed because an inner sect disciple had actually reached the 7th stage, and even after reaching the 7th stage, why had he not become a core disciple? "Stonefall Fist!" Zhang Xiang shouted loudly. His eyes suddenly gave a sharp look, and his figure exploded forward with a pair of fists above wrapped in a layer of pale yellow and intimidating chi. He had obtained this boxing technique, called truncated fist, during an adventure years ago. This boxing technique had been labeled as one of the most powerful techniques in the school. Zhang Xiang in an instant appeared in front of Yi Shiwen, and his fists like 2 hills smashed down on him. "Rushing Thunder Hand!" Yi Shiwen shouted softly as his hands wrapped in a layer of thunder, like chi, which moved up to welcome the incoming attack. Yi Shiwen's hands struck out 6 echoes. Bang! 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 Both sides exchanged blows while their shadows interlocked. Yi Shiwen had reached the peak of his strength, but Zhang Xiang was actually in a situation as if his strength was breaking 10,000 laws. Finally, their fists pounded fiercely. Boom! Yi Shiwen's rushing thunder hand once again made a loud explosion-like sound, and the power suddenly increased dramatically. His palms directly collided with Zhang Xiang's double fist, which cracked instantly upon impact, and then his palm directly printed on his chest. Bang! Zhang Xiang was slapped by a palm, and he flew directly out of the arena while upside down. This fight's victor is Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen smoothly entered into the top 3. Chapter 25. Chapter 25. 3 moves to knock you down. That Yi Shiwen is just too strong to think he was actually able to enter into the top 3 ranks. I heard he is the youngest son of Elder Yi Kongming. No wonder he is so strong. Not even one of the Yi siblings is weak. The news of Yi Shiwen advancing into the top 3 had suddenly shocked so many people that the news of other disciples entering into the top 10 had paled in comparison, to the extent that almost no one even knew their names. Of course, it was not like no one knew about the importance of this news. For example, Wang Lai. He surrounded Yi Shiwen excitedly and said, "Ha ha ha, man. You're fucking awesome. If I come across something unexpected in the future, and if someone dares to bully me, then you help me beat him." TL. Wang Lai has used the term nyobi, which has many meanings, but I prefer to translate it as fucking awesome or kick-ass. Yi Shiwen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What was he? Wang Lai's bodyguard. Or goon? However, Yi Shiwen felt warm in his heart, because no matter what he said, Wang Lai considered himself as his brother. Walking sideways, he is nothing but an upstart who pretends as if he is really a nyobi character when he does not even know the immensity of the universe. Suddenly, a sarcastic voice spread from one side. TL. Basically, he wants Yi Shiwen to know his place and stop showing off as if he's the most powerful guy, even though he is so young and doesn't know that many powerful masters exist in this world. Everyone looked in the direction from where the voice had originated and saw a young man about 20 years old, clad in a Chinese robe. He looked handsome, but there was a look of disdain on his face. Someone recognized this young man as Zhao Yinxue. He was one of the 5 great disciples, ranking 2nd, and hence was also one of the top 3 inner sect disciples. TL. Yi Shiwen is now the 3rd, and Zhao Yinxue is the 2nd. What did you say? Yi Shiwen said immediately in a cold voice. I said you are just like a frog at the bottom of a well who does not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Where do you think Yuan's school stands in this big universe? And you just know how to associate with the trash. Zhao Yinxue said, and it was clear that he was calling Wang Lai a trash. When Yi Shiwen was getting a lot of public attention, Zhao Yinxue was simply dying of jealousy. This time he had wanted to enjoy all the attention of the people, but rather it was stolen by some unknown guy named Yi Shiwen. Who was this guy? Why was everyone paying attention to him, when he himself had also entered into the top 3 and had imagined to be the focus of everyone's attention? But instead of what he had imagined, everyone was paying attention to the sudden emergence of Yi Shiwen. I am a genius, not him. Zhao Yinxue was screaming loudly in his heart. Zhao Yinxue, if you are a man, then come up on the stage and play with me, Yi Shiwen said as he turned and jumped into the arena. All the eyes were fixated on Zhao Yinxue, who was ranked second in the top 3 disciples. This was the right time to find out exactly who was the stronger one between the two of them. Although Zhao Yinxue knew that Yi Shiwen was definitely not someone to be trifled with, but the words had already been said, and it was impossible to take them back. Moreover, he had also felt that Yi Shiwen was just like a dark horse. So how could he possibly resist against an experienced veteran like himself? Humph, I'll teach you a lesson, so that you learn about the immensity of heaven and earth. Zhao Shui sneered, and also jumped in the arena. Dongfang Bai is here. TL. Dongfang Bai can be translated as Oriental White. Suddenly, there was a commotion, and a white figure emerged from the crowd, holding a double-edged sword in one hand and was clad in white clothes, filled with heroic aura. This double-edged sword, although looked ordinary from its sheath and scabbard, but when unsheathed, it looked very sharp. Everyone present there knew that he was the first of the 5 great disciples named Dongfang Bai. There were rumors of him practicing fencing from his childhood, and with a sword in one hand while ranking first among the inner sect disciples, he had challenged a core disciple 3 years ago. Although he had not won, but he had not lost either, which showed his extraordinary strength. Being the first of the 5 great disciples was certainly not for show. Dongfang Bai just calmly looked at the two and stayed quiet. The top 3 disciples had gathered here, and one could easily guess that this was going to be a fierce competition between the 2 evenly matched opponents. Soon the group of elders made the decision to advance the competition for the title of a champion. Now no one's going to save you, Zhao Yinxue said, and sneered repeatedly. 3 moves, if I can't knock you down in 3 moves, then I will turn around and walk away, Yi Shiwen said while showing 3 fingers. Zhao Yinxue's complexion turned pale immediately after being humiliated out in the open by Yi Shiwen. Right, exactly, knock him down. What's so great about these 5 great disciples anyway? Wang Lai shouted from below. You are courting death, Zhao Shui said. Today I'll break all the bones in your body and allow you to learn about the immensity of heaven and earth. TL. He seems so desperate to teach him about the immensity of heaven and earth. He reminds me of my geography teacher, tongue sticking out. Zhao Yinxue was burning with anger. His whole body was seething with anger, and the qi had covered all over and around his body, causing a noise from the friction from the fine threads of air inside the ring. It seemed like the news of him reaching the late 7th stage was definitely not bogus. As soon as he used his fists to punch, immediately it felt as if the temperature had dropped by several degrees in the entire arena. This was his famous trembling ice fist technique, which when used could directly freeze a person. Endless cold wind instantly wrapped around Yi Shiwen, as if trying to freeze him along with his life. But after seeing this, Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, and with just a step his stature exploded out of the snow and rushed towards Zhao Yinxue. Then he used his move pass like thunder and move like the wind against trembling ice fist and easily split it open and scattered its power thoroughly. The immensity of heaven and earth. Do you still want to teach me about it? Yi Shiwen sneered while his palm slapped. Bang! An average and not so powerful palm slapped directly on his face. Poof! Zhao Yinxue spurted out a lot of blood, and almost all of his teeth were extracted out by Yi Shiwen. Zhao Yinxue looked unbelievably at him, but Yi Shiwen didn't plan to stop whatsoever. He immediately used his foot and kicked fiercely. Bang! Zhao Yinxue flew out in the air from the kick, and in the moment of his fall, Yi Shiwen instantly used his palm covered with thunder-shaped qi and slapped him with a destructive force. having a fearful wave of unmatched power which bombarded fiercely into his body. Boom! Zhao Yinxue fiercely fell out of the arena. All of the ribs in his chest were broken, then he collapsed and fell unconscious. Many of the disciples who were watching this felt a chill down their spines and swallowed their saliva, because yet another of the 5 great disciples was seriously wounded, and Yi Shiwen had already defeated 3 out of 5. Except the head of the 5 great disciples Dongfang Bai and 1 other female disciple Ziyan. None of the other 3 were his match. Now that Zhao Yinxue was seriously injured and unconscious, the only ones left to snatch the title of champion were Yi Shiwen and Dongfang Bai. This Yi Shiwen is unexpectedly so powerful that even Zhao Yinxue, a master of the late 7th stage, was so easily defeated by him. It's a pity that he is so ruthless and acts rashly, so we can't know for sure whether he will be a blessing or a curse once he grows up in the future. Such a powerful disciple to actually come from our Yuan school. Of course, it's a blessing for the school. The more talented our disciples are, the more formidable our school will be. There was a discussion going on about Yi Shiwen among the elders sitting in the elders' seating area. I won't take advantage of you, so I'll wait for you to take good rest, Dongfang Bai said indifferently, as Yi Shiwen had demonstrated his strength in front of everyone and was eager for action, so he kind of wanted to urge him to fight on impulse. No, it will be nothing but a waste of time, Yi Shiwen said. Even though Zhao Yinxue had already reached the 7th stage, but he still couldn't be a match for him and was easily defeated. He simply didn't need to use too much strength to beat him, and within few breaths his strength had already been restored to its peak condition. Chapter 26. Chapter 26. The winning, well, quite straightforward. Dongfang Bai nodded, then flew up and skimmed over the ring, just like a bird skimming over its prey. All the eyes were fixed on the 2 individuals, as this was going to be the toughest battle in this year's school inner waiting. This event was going to be the main center of attraction for everyone, because the one who would win this battle would also win the championship and become the champion among the inner sect disciples. Although after this battle, the next competition was going to be among the outer sect disciples, however their overall strength was quite low compared to inner sect disciples. Every year, very few people would come to watch their fights. Even those elders who had been watching the competition from elders' seating area earlier would also leave, including the lords of various palaces, leaving only a few elders as in charge of the competition. Then El will accept your request. Dongfang Bai's sword danced like a flower. Then he pointed his sword at Yi Shiwen and said, "Take out your blade." Dongfang Bai was well known for his swordsmanship among the disciples, and his cultivation itself was quite amazing. He had already reached the peak of the 7th stage, and he could break through to the 8th stage anytime. This time's 5 great disciples could be considered as the strongest generation to emerge from inner sect disciples. Yuan School allowed the masters of the 5th stage to qualify as the core disciples. Those who had acquired the 7th stage were not considered weak among the core disciples. Those who were at the 8th stage were considered strong, and finally, those who had already attained the 9th stage were considered extremely strong among the core disciples. Yi Shiwen had finally pulled out a long blade surrounded by onlookers and disciples who were staring at him with their big wide eyes, as this was the 2nd time Yi Shiwen had pulled out his blade in front of them. The first time, it was against the Lord of the Penalty Palace, a Xiantian-level master Wang Jian. Now perhaps they could finally take a glimpse at his true strength, because earlier all of his opponents had been defeated by his palm technique. "Watch out!" Dongfang Bai shouted gently, in his hand holding a sharp sword which danced and produced a sharp light which instantly struck towards Yi Shiwen. The speed of this strike was so fast that the sky instantly filled with light produced from the sword. However, the true killer attack was hidden somewhere inside that sword light which had spread all over the sky. Yi Shiwen's blade chopped out the new moon beheader. His blade had chopped down straight towards the incoming attack, as he had already seen through Dongfang Bai's killer move. So he had used his own killer move to counter it. Boom! Yi Shiwen's blade struck at Dongfang Bai's sword with great strength, producing a sound of air explosion in the arena. Both of their attacks were extremely fast. Dongfang Bai's swordplay method itself emphasized on quick and skillful attacks, and Yi Shiwen's Cold Moon Beheader was also a top-class speed technique. Otherwise, how could he strike 9 blade shadows at once? In addition to that, he had also integrated a part of the rushing Thunder Hand skill into the blade, bringing his blade attack to a near perfection. Both of their weapons collided as the crowd beneath was carefully tracking all their actions. Zhang Xiang, one of the 5 great disciples, was also watching this fight with an ugly expression on his face. Earlier, he had also fought against Yi Shiwen and had lost tragically to his palm technique. He had originally thought that Yi Shiwen's palm technique was his most powerful technique, but he would never have imagined that this palm technique was nothing compared to his astonishing blade technique. This was his true strength. Dongfang Bai was already at the peak of 7th stage, and his strength was enormous, almost about to break through the strength of 20 tigers. Although he had practiced in the School of Speed, even the masters of the 9th stage would easily be cut down by his sword, which was quite shocking. Although Yi Shiwen had only acquired the peak of 6th stage, his strength was not one bit inferior to him. Yi Shiwen Long Blade was striking without stagnation. His blade strikes were as fast as the lightning and ice cold like the moon. Basically, he was not giving Dongfang Bai any opportunity to take rest. This move, New Moon Beheader, he had already practiced to the state of perfection, where his moves resembled the nature itself, without the slightest flaws. TL. Huan Ran Tianqing means to resemble nature itself or of the highest quality. Dongfang Bai was finding it difficult to anticipate Yi Shiwen's moves, and it was quite evident that Yi Shiwen's skill with the blade was quite high. Although Dongfang Bai's cultivation was higher, but his understanding of the swordplay was far lesser compared to Yi Shiwen. He was just a teenager. How could his understanding of the swordplay be this good? Dongfang Bai would never know the secret about Yi Shiwen's mysterious space. However, right now, he did not have unnecessary time to think about the reason, because Yi Shiwen's long blade had already struck. Dongfang Bai had no other choice but to use his sword and stab, which split open Yi Shiwen's incoming blade attack. However, the authority to take initiative in the battle had already been transferred from his hands to Yi Shiwen. TL. Because Yi Shiwen had made the first strong move, Yi Shiwen had easily gained the upper hand. The long blade flashed like lightning in his hand, and 3 blade shadows suddenly appeared in the sky and chopped down towards Dongfang Bai. Dongfang Bai could only resist passively, and in his heart, he was being choked to death. Even if it was Master at the peak of 6th stage, using 3 swords simultaneously to attack him, it would not pose any threat to him. Even if it was a Master at the peak of 7th stage, Dongfang Bai could easily defeat him, but Yi Shiwen was simply an abnormality. His speed was no less than his own speed, and while using the Celestial Step skill, his speed was even faster. Even his strength was somewhat larger than his own strength. Yi Shiwen was basically a monster. As he had consumed monkey wine, which had increased his strength drastically, was definitely not lower than Dongfang Bai's strength. Even his Jin Qi had become thick and profound and transformed into a mysterious group of light, and was definitely powerful compared to Dongfang Bai's Jin Qi. None of the aspects of Yi Shiwen were inferior to Dongfang Bai. In fact, some of his aspects were even better. Dongfang Bai was clearly losing to his dominating fighting style. Everyone was shocked. They all knew that Yi Shiwen was very powerful, but they had absolutely not expected that his real strength would actually be so incredible. Who was Dongfang Bai? He was the first of the 5 great disciples, and no one among the inner sect disciples was stronger than him. Long time ago, he had fought against a core disciple and still couldn't be defeated. However, now, he was clearly losing to Yi Shiwen, which was simply a miracle to them. The elders were somewhat surprised while looking at the two exchanging blows in the arena. Their strength levels were simply not enough to surprise the Xiantian level elders, but Yi Shiwen was simply too amazing. Everyone was quite favorable towards the genius of the inner sect disciples, and with his talent, he could easily become a core disciple. Also, it would be easy for him to rise inside the core sect by taking over the positions left by senior core disciples. One could imagine that there were great expectations of him. However, no one had expected that he might actually lose to Yi Shiwen's dominating fighting style. Although he had not yet lost to Yi Shiwen, But it was quite clear from the battle itself that Yi Shiwen's monstrous Jin Qi would definitely defeat him sooner or later. This dark horse was actually too dark. TL. Heima means dark horse or unexpected winner. Meanwhile, Yi Kongming was looking at his son's outstanding performance. He looked happy and was grinning from ear to ear, and was also not being critical about Yi Shiwen's performance. Dongfang Bai certainly knew that in this fight, he would surely be defeated sooner or later. His only choice left was to wait for Yi Shiwen's Jin Qi to get used up, but it was evident from Yi Shiwen's ruddy complexion that he still had a lot of fight left in him. TL. Basically, Yi Shiwen looked like a battle maniac. Dongfang Bai had no other choice but to risk it all in one final attack. Dongfang Bai howled loudly, his sword dance-producing a silver sword light which obscured the sky like a mighty galaxy. This move was powerful enough to decide the outcome of this battle. Yi Shiwen also gave a loud shout, his blade chopped out, and suddenly 9 blade shadows appeared in the sky. Although faint but unexpectedly, a new moon was split open while fully demonstrating the profoundness of this attack. Boom! A terrible blast wave of qi swept off across the ring, and the huge ring directly collapsed down. The smoke and dust finally dispersed, and everyone could see that Dongfang Bai's clothes had been damaged. He looked somewhat distressed, and Yi Shiwen's long blade was placed horizontally on his shoulder. The outcome of this battle was clear. Champion, Yi Shiwen. Chapter 27. Chapter 27. Hodian 7-stage school Inner Wang, which took place only once in every 3 years, had finally come to an end, and Yi Shiwen, the unexpected dark horse of this competition, had unexpectedly won the championship, and had also become the center of attraction. Nobody had imagined that an unknown guy like Yi Shiwen would actually win this competition, and from now onwards this name would firmly settle itself into their minds. After the competition was over, the Yi family had gathered at home to have dinner together. Yi Feng had been busy with his closed-door training, so he didn't attend, but Yi Rushua was present at the dinner. The whole family was beaming with happiness because Yi Shiwen had unexpectedly won the championship. Although years ago, both Yi Feng and Yi Rushua had also become champions and had been promoted to the rank of core disciples. But since these two were already considered geniuses, so it was not surprising. However, Yi Shiwen's performance had always been very mediocre, but this time his power erupted suddenly, and he also won the championship. This had thoroughly surprised his family. Wonder, before you were just at the Hodian 4th stage, weren't you? But in just 1 month, you actually reached the peak of 6th stage, and your blade technique also seems like an intermediate level technique, and it has already been practiced to an extent that it has actually allowed you to clearly surpass a lot of core disciples. Yi Kongming asked. About this, even I do not know for sure, but it seems like I got sudden enlightenment which caused my cultivation to progress quickly. Yi Shiwen had already prepared an answer in case Yi Kongming was to ask about it. Enlightenment? Yi Kongming frowned, but he didn't doubt Yi Shiwen as he had watched him grow up, and he knew very well that Yi Shiwen was not the kind of person who would lie. However, this matter about enlightenment was really unimaginable, and since it was without precedent, so there was no way to explain it either. Attaboy! Yi Rushua patted on his shoulder. Gee, that arrogant kid Dongfang Bai actually fell face down in front of you. Yi Shiwen felt somewhat helpless, because just now she seemed even more immature than Dongfang Bai. Although you won the championship, you cannot be too full of yourself because there are still many talented core disciples, and not to mention this world is very big and there are many geniuses out there. So remember not to become too complacent. Yi Kongming warned him as he didn't want him to become arrogant. Yes, Yi Shiwen said. 3 months later, the core disciples competition will be held jointly with Zhang family, and you 3 siblings must support each other in the Blood Yuan territory. Yi Kongming said. Rest assured, father, Yi Rushua somewhat carelessly said, we will certainly help Big Brother in winning the first place. It's not your brother I am worried about, but your carelessness. At this time he interrupted her and said, just like your brother is undergoing closed-door training, tomorrow you will also start the closed-door training for the next 3 months. Yi Kongming said, I know, Yi Rushua said while pouting. After dinner, Yishuan did not stay, but directly went back to his small yard and started cultivating. The championship prize was quite rich, with a reward of 2,000 low-grade spirit stones, and later each month he would get 300 as monthly salary. Then, compared to other disciples, his development would progress by leaps and bounds. Apart from these 2,000 low-grade spirit stones, the most important rewards were actually those 3 golden pills. These pills were actually a kind of well-known medicines in Yuan school, which when consumed could significantly enhance the current cultivation level. However, it was only rewarded to talented core disciples, and this time, among the 5 disciples who got promoted to core disciples, only Yi Shiwen had received these golden pills. Yi Shiwen's plan was to first enhance his strength. Although his strength was quite dominating when compared to inner disciples, but he also understood that there were many talented and strong masters among the core disciples. And in time he would have no choice but to face them. So his first priority was to enhance his own strength. As long as he was strong enough, he would be able to deal with any challenge. Yi Shiwen took out a very small porcelain bottle from which he poured out yellow-colored medicine into his mouth, then swallowed it down and simultaneously entered the mysterious space. 3 golden pills soon turned into heat and started flowing inside his body. The heat rose from his dantian, and immediately the Zhen Qi started to madly revolve within his body, and his face suddenly turned red. In this chaos of Zhen Qi inside his body, the original stable state began to loosen up. Basically, he's going to level up. Various insights about the bright jade power had started to swarm his mind in succession, which lead to further deepen his understanding of the Wu Dao. Wu Dao equals martial way, boom. He did not know how long it took, but his original firm state had finally been overthrown by a big torrent of energy. Houtian's 7th stage had been achieved. With the help of 3 golden pills, he had finally broken through to the Houtian's 7th stage, directly from the peak of Houtian's 6th stage. Once again, he had broken through his old state, and his strength had also increased drastically. He previously possessed the strength of 20 tigers, which had directly increased to the terrific strength of 30 tigers after the breakthrough, which was much more than what he had expected. This was all because of that monkey wine which had granted him this hurricane-like strength. He looked outside and saw that it was still early morning. Then once again he started cultivating. Time passed rapidly, and in a blink of an eye, a month had already gone. A figure could be seen in the forest located on the backside of the Qingfeng Mountain. Missing Moon Beheader! With a soft shout, a figure shuttled inside the forest. The blade Qi struck horizontally, and all the surrounding trees could be seen successively falling on the ground. This missing moon beheader technique has reached the final boundary of practice. Yishuan Jinqi was automatically drying up the sweat on his body. All this time, he had totally submerged his mind and soul to practice cold moon beheader and had finally reached the Xiaoqing level. Although he had not reached the Deshang level, but even so his fighting strength had greatly increased. Xiaoqing equals 3rd level. Deshang equals 4th level. Final level, culmination. And even the attack range of New Moon Beheader was also not the same. Although Missing Moon Beheader was an individual attack, but when the blade was chopped down it would produce many blade shadows, each one similar to the other, but the total power would be terrifying. If practiced to the Deshang level, it would produce 9 overlapping blades, causing the full power to increase tenfold. And now Yi Shiwen had practiced to a level where he had only achieved a maximum of 5 overlapping blades at once, but the power could fully enlarge up to 3 times. In more than a month's time, Yi Shiwen's cultivation had reached the peak of Houtian's 7th stage, with his strength increasing to the strength of 50 tigers. Each of his blade strike had a heavy crushing force containing huge power, and in addition to that he had completely practiced the celestial step to the Deshang level. He had also practiced Missing Moon Beheader to the Xiaoqing level, so now he was confident enough to easily defeat any master of the Houtian 8th stage. Even if it was a master of the Houtian 9th stage, he could easily compete against him. It's not that he did not want to continue his cultivation, but he had completely consumed a total of 4,000 low-grade spirit stones while practicing Celestial Step and Missing Moon Beheader. He was once again penniless with not a spirit stone left. With the help of the mysterious space, his martial arts cultivation could progress very fast, but the required spirit stone consumption was simply too enormous. Now he had to find a way to earn spirit stones. Chapter 28. Chapter 28. Down the hill, Yi Shiwen returned back to the Yuan school from the backside of the Qingfeng Mountain and went straight to the Gongda Palace. Here things like demon beast cores, herbs, etc. could be exchanged for school credits and vice versa. Meanwhile, it was also possible to accept missions at Gongda Palace. Some of these missions were issued by outsiders, some by the school disciples, and some missions were issued even by the elders who would give strange and unusual rewards. But his main objective was getting low-grade spirit stones as reward. He wanted to earn spirit stones as fast as could, so in addition to hunting demon beasts, he had planned to take up missions as well. With varying degrees of difficulty, rewards would also be entirely different. These missions were divided into a B, C, and D rank missions, each corresponding to the elders, the core disciples, the inner disciples, and the outer door disciples, respectively. Higher-ranked missions would involve greater difficulty, and at the same time, the reward would also be huge. Now, being a core disciple, Yi Shiwen could take up rank B missions and above. There was a large crowd of disciples for rank C and D missions, but there were few disciples on the rank B side, just a small number of core disciples, and not to mention most of the core disciples were out on missions. Yi Shiwen glanced at the published mission board and compared rank B missions with the rank C and D missions. He noticed that these missions were frequently getting replaced, but replacement for rank B missions was not at all quick. Look for heavenly cold grass in the depths of Qingfeng Mountain. Rewards 300 low-grade spirit stones. Look for a Blood Wolf King's crystal nucleus. Rewards 500 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Shiwen glanced through the missions of varying difficulty and saw that the rewards were ranging from 100 to 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. For inner disciples, this was already an astronomical figure, and even for core disciples, it was not a small figure. After all, their monthly salary was only 300 low-grade spirit stones. However, the difficulty of these missions was quite high. For example, a Blood Wolf King was a terrifying demon beast which was considered at the peak of Hotian 8th stage. Even most of the core disciples could absolutely not complete this mission, let alone inner disciples. Yi Shiwen's eyes skimming through the mission stopped on a relatively new mission which had been added that very day. Escort Qingfeng, trading firm and transporting a batch of medicine ingredients to the Tianyuan city. Rewards 3,000 low-grade spirit stones. Requirements Hotian 7th stage or above. Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly lit up after seeing the reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones for this mission. If he could receive these 3,000 low-grade spirit stones as reward, then undoubtedly these could solve his urgent needs. Then Missing Moon Beheader could be practiced to the Deshang level, and even his cultivation could further increase. But for an ordinary escort duty, the reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones was quite exaggerated, as it would take almost a year even for a core disciple to save so many low-grade spirit stones. Even this mission's requirements were quite high, as Hotian 7th stage disciples or above were considered top masters among the core disciples. Yuan School was located atop the Qingfeng Mountain, and Qingfeng Trading Firm was situated in Qingfeng Town, which was located at the base of Qingfeng Mountain. Qingfeng Trading Firm was the largest trading firm in town and usually did business of medicinal ingredients. Tianyuan City was the nearest city from the Qingfeng Mountain, only about half a day away. If left early in the morning, one could reach there by evening. There were many escort missions among rank C or D missions. However, the reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones was absolutely rare. But anyway, right now he was in a dire need of spirit stones, so how could he ignore this mission? He took up the mission, and a steward informed him that he would have to visit Qingfeng Trading Firm the very next morning. After taking up the mission, he did not stay long in the Gongda Palace. He went back straight to his small courtyard to continue the closed-door training. Inside the special space, Yi Shiwen's figure could be seen showing endless maneuvers. It was so quick that in just few steps it would appear very far away. Celestial Step was a high-level power technique, And just now, it might have been completely demonstrated by Yi Shiwen proving that he had already practiced it to the Deshang level. But Yi Shiwen had a feeling that this was far from reaching the limit, as if he had reached a bottleneck, and this was definitely not the end. Yi Shiwen knew that this celestial step was actually a Xiantian level power technique, but since it was incomplete, so he could only practice as a high-level power technique. But under normal circumstances, he might have practiced it to a profound realm if he could somehow get the missing parts of celestial step. However, after practicing in the special space, he discovered something else. After he achieved the Deshang level and continued to practice, he unexpectedly found out that he could still continue to practice. Moreover, some of the original missing information related to celestial step was also coming into his mind, which also included some mysterious, profound contents. Yi Shiwen felt completely stunned to find out that this special space could not only just accelerate the speed of martial arts practice, but it could also help him deduce the original missing parts of a technique. If this was the case, then it was quite excellent. Now he could obtain a Xiantian level technique for free, and including Cold Moon Beheader and Bright Jade Power, he would be carrying 3 Xiantian level techniques. If he could practice all 3 of these techniques to Deshang level, then the end result would be terrible. Many Xiantian experts weren't able to practice 3 Xiantian level techniques. At that time, he would attain an even higher level of strength. However, it was obvious that deducing the rest of the power technique would require a lot of spirit stones, and these were the things that he needed the most right now. TL. If only he had few more spirit stones, he might have completely mastered the celestial step to a profound real. He had a lot of hope from this mission. Soon the sky brightened up. Yi Shiwen went out of the school and descended from the mountain along the mountain road. He came down the first mountain so easily that he got confused, and after a short period of confusion, he finally had a firm grasp of his enhanced strength, and thanks to that, this time he had both the ability and opportunity to go down the mountain and have a look. Qingfeng Town was located down the Qingfeng Mountain, although claimed to be a town, but the population was over 10,000. Many warriors would come down and go up the mountain, as a Yuan school was located at the top. Many warriors from foreign lands would also visit, because there were a lot of demon beasts in the Qingfeng Mountain, and these warriors would enter the forest to hunt them. Gradually, a very prosperous town had formed here. Yi Shiwen had descended the mountain several times before, and he knew where Qingfeng trading firm was located, and since it was a big place, it was quite easy to find it too. An attendant was standing at the trading firm's entrance, and as soon as he saw Yi Shiwen, he came forward and asked, "Are you the outstanding disciple from Yuan School who will take up our trading firm's escort mission?" Yuan School had quite a lofty reputation in this neighborhood. "Yes." Yi Shiwen nodded. "Then please come with me," the attendant said. Chapter 29. Chapter 29. Conflict in the trading firm. Yi Shiwen followed the attendant into the Qingfeng trading firm, but suddenly he heard a shout and stopped. "Brother Wen." Yi Shiwen turned to look and actually saw Wang Lai striding joyfully to catch up. He laughed and said, "I did not expect that it was you, man. Greetings, fourth son." The attendant walked up to Wang Lai and said with respect, "Fourth son, is this trading firm owned by your family?" Yi Shiwen got surprised for a moment, but he knew that Wang Lai's family was quite influential in this region. But who would have thought that his family actually owned the Qingfeng trading firm? "Yes, but what are you doing here?" Wang Lai looked somewhat puzzled and asked him. "I picked up an escort mission, so I came over." Yi Shiwen replied, "You have received this mission." Wang Lai looked a bit serious. "Well, it does not matter. Now I would like to greet you on behalf of this firm." After Wang Lai dismissed the attendant, Yi Shiwen spoke once again and said, "What is going on? Your family is actually willing to pay a reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones for an escort mission. Actually, this reward is not being paid out by our family," Wang Lai said. After all, the reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones was definitely not a small number for any party. Not to mention, he was just one man receiving this reward. "Our family's trading firm is actually regarded as a subordinate of Tianyuan City Lord," Wang Lai slowly explained. "For a long time, our family has been collecting medicinal ingredients and some other stuff for the City Lord Palace. This time, We have to escort a batch of medicinal ingredients to City Lord Palace, and your rewards are also being given out by City Lord Palace, and not by my family. Wang Lai said, which medicinal ingredients are so important that City Lord Palace has attached so much importance to them? Yi Xuan asked, although Tianyuan City was only a small city located at the border region of Great Yu State and could not be compared with the big cities located in the interior region of Great Yu State. However, it also had a population of more than 200,000, plus including some affiliated towns. The total population count would cross 500,000 people. The fate of these 500,000 people was held in the hands of City Lord Palace, and in addition to that, being close to the Qingfeng Mountain, the medicinal ingredients and other stuff available on the mountain were quite easily accessible to the City Lord Palace, considering its huge influence. I don't know, even my father avoids talking about this matter. So how could I possibly know? Wang Lai said with a forced smile. Yi Xuan understood very well that Wang family was not as harmonious as his own family, because Wang Lai's father had established quite a big business. Wang Lai had 3 ambitious elder brothers, and he was the youngest, born of a maidservant. When Wang Lai was born, his 3 elder brothers had already reached adulthood and had taken over the family business, and even his nephews and nieces were almost the same age as his. In fact, he didn't have a high status of a prince in his family, which is why he would always spend his time cultivating on the Qingfeng Mountain rather than staying at home with his family. I was looking for your help, but couldn't find you this whole month, Wang Lai said. I had gone to the back side of the mountain to cultivate. Yi Xuan replied without hiding anything. You have become quite a cultivation maniac, Wang Lai said, although he had been unable to see through Yi Xuan's cultivation since the last meeting. But obviously after a month, his cultivation now had become even more inscrutable. Yi Xuan smiled, but did not speak anything. Wang Lai's talent was quite good, otherwise his cultivation would not have been faster than Yi Xuan's. But he was quite lazy by nature and would easily get tired of cultivating. Otherwise, by now he would already have reached the Hodian 5th stage. TL. Wang Lai's cultivation was ahead of Yi Xuan in the first chapter. Both of them, while chatting and laughing, went inside a hall on the 2nd floor of the Qingfeng trading firm. Inside the hall, they saw 10 or so warriors from the sandwiching regiment standing firmly on each side. These were the experts invited by the Qingfeng trading firm. Yo, isn't this Wang Lai? Suddenly a youth dressed up in Chinese clothes came out from among those 10 or more warriors and walked up to them. Wang Lai's complexion got somewhat unsightly. He whispered to Yi Xuan and explained that this was his brother's eldest son, called Wang Ding, and they were never on good terms with each other. Gee, I've got fine warriors on my side, but what have you got on your end? A kid who is not even weaned yet. Wang Ding gave out an unbridled laugh. TL. He is trying to mock Yi Xuan as he looks young and inexperienced compared to those other warriors. Ha ha ha. At Wang Ding's sarcastic words, those warriors gave out a loud laughter. You fools! He is the champion of this year's school, interweighing at Yuan School, Wang Lai said with a red complexion on his face. Ha ha ha! I have heard of the competition at the Yuan School. Isn't the champion of this competition a kid who has not even grown facial hair, has not even seen the sight of blood yet? I can beat 5 kids like him at once. A 30-year-old warrior laughed and said. Rest of the warriors also had an appearance of approval, although Yuan School's reputation was quite illustrious. But for these warriors who had seen lots of blood and their lives hanging from the edge of a knife on the battlefield, these Yuan disciples were nothing more than flowers in the greenhouse. Most of those warriors were at least at the Hodian 6th stage. Some were even at the early Hodian 8th stage. All of these warriors looked very imposing, because they had seen blood on the battlefield and had even killed people. Suddenly, Yi Xuan moved, and very next instant his figure flashed like an immortal himself and appeared in front of that insolent warrior. Then his palm slapped. Bang! That insolent warrior was fiercely slapped, and a mouthful of teeth had been broken and extracted out by this attack. His body flew off like a kite and severely hit the wall above. This direct hit from his body had caused a dense spider web-like fine lines on the wall. Then his body rolled down. No one knew whether he was still alive or dead. You court death. Do you really think you can casually insult Yuan School like this? Yi Xuan said blankly. Quiet, There was a pin-drop silence in the hall. Somehow a warrior of peak Hotion's 6th stage had actually been smacked down to death by Yi Shiwen. All of the warriors were stunned. Then suddenly several warriors got furious. He even dared to hurt fourth brother. Cripple him. Break all the bones in his body. Several warriors had gotten furious and had rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Most of them were already at the peak of Hotion's 6th stage, and some were at the Hotion's 7th stage. The scene looked threatening. Yi Shiwen stood there fearless, then rushed using the celestial step and launched rushing thunder hand instantly. Bang! A warrior was slapped by his palm and screamed, then went flying out of the window. Bang! Another warrior was kicked by Yi Shiwen and severely hit the pillar. None of these warriors were his match. They had completely lost to Yi Shiwen's monstrous strength and had fell face down on the ground. Chapter 30. Chapter 30. Qingfeng's Stronghold, Wang Lai. How dare you wound a warrior invited by our family? Wang Ding suddenly got furious. Wang Ding, I am your uncle. I guess your father has not taught you about respecting the elders. Seeing Yi Shiwen's godly strength, Wang Lai's heart had calmed down. So he answered back without any hesitation and said, You are defending this loser. Did not you hear what he just said? He was clearly insulting the Yi Yuan school. And if this endangers our Wang family, then are you prepared to take responsibility for that? Wang Ding got very furious after being scolded by Wang Lai. He was mad at those worthless warriors. For him, each and every one of them were weaklings who had lost to a kid like Yi Shiwen. Wang Lai, you wait for me. Wang Ding's complexion was unsightly. Saying those words in a ruthless manner, he left bitterly. So cool. That small bastard will never look down on me, Wang Lai said while laughing. The gazes falling on Yi Shiwen had clearly changed. Now they did not dare to underestimate him like before. When do we set out? Yi Shiwen asked Wang Lai. We will set out in afternoon and enter the city at night. Wang Lai replied. Enter the city at night? To hide from whom? Yi Shiwen knew that Wang Lai probably did not know much. Otherwise, considering the strong friendship between those two, there was no reason to hide. After a while, Wang Lai got busy with other things, and Yi Shiwen found a place to sit down and closed his eyes. In the morning came a dozen more warriors who were also at the Hotion's 6th stage or above and looked quite strong. I thank everybody for taking up this mission. At noon, the door opened and entered a slightly hunchbacked old man. I am the housekeeper Wang Ding, the one responsible for leading this mission. So this is the senior once called Quick Knife Wang. I have always looked forward to meeting you. A warrior approached, cupping one hand over the other across his chest, and said, Originally 20 years ago, he was renowned as the Quick Knife Wang Ding of the Qingfeng Mountain region. Who would have thought he has actually become a servant of Wang family? Thank you for your cooperation, everybody. Please get ready. We will leave soon, Wang Ding said in a deep voice. After everyone had arrived and ready to go, Wang family troops hit the road under the protection of a talent like Yi Shiwen to transport the medicinal ingredients, but allowing Yi Shiwen to be the escort was quite strange. Even the Wang family princes had not accompanied them, just an old housekeeper and some guards from the Wang family. Even Wang Lai had also not accompanied them. Yi Shiwen couldn't relax because he felt that this escort mission was quite strange. Escorting a medicinal ingredient for a reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones clearly explained that it was definitely a very important mission. Higher difficulty missions would be directly proportional to the reward associated. However, for this mission Wang family had only sent an old housekeeper, which was somewhat strange. At this time, many of those warriors also felt that something was strange. These people had lived dangerous lives and were quite experienced. They could clearly sense this strangeness and were keeping their mouths shut. The team slowly moved forward, and after about an hour had passed, they suddenly felt some disturbance ahead. Chun Long and Chun Hu, the two great leaders of the Qingfeng stronghold, have actually come to us. This is unexpected, but this is a cargo of ordinary herbal medicine, and is definitely not worth both leaders to personally come for. Wang Ying's voice spread out from the front. Qingfeng's stronghold. There was a commotion among the warriors, because Qingfeng's stronghold's reputation was considered very illustrious in this neighborhood. In the nearby regions of the Qingfeng Mountain, the people were quite sturdy and valiant, much like mountain bandits, and Qingfeng's stronghold was one of the largest groups. Chunlong and Chun, who were the two notorious leaders of this stronghold, and were said to be extremely powerful, and the cultivation of both of these brothers was also at the peak of Hotian 8th stage. Once the two joined forces, even a master of the Hotian 9th stage wouldn't stand a chance against them. As far as these warriors were concerned, these two Qingfeng stronghold leaders were like a great deterrent. It really is just common herbal medicine. Wang Deying, you used to be quite skilled in the past. On top of that, you're a senior. Do not fool us, bullying us two brothers using your knowledge and experience. In front of the team stood a troop of 100 persons blocking the road, led by two persons of sturdy frame with rough appearance. These two persons, Shenlong and Chun, who were actually the leaders of the Qingfeng stronghold. Certainly not, but our Qingfeng trading firm and your Qingfeng stronghold have always minded our own business. Now, why are you trying to make things difficult for both of us? Wang Deying said calmly in a deep voice. We do not want to make things difficult for you. As long as you hand over those herbal medicines to us, our brothers would let you all go unhurt. Chunlong said. Humph, it seems that you two leaders have turned on our Qingfeng trading firm, although our firm is always kind with others, but it does not mean we are weak, so do not think so highly of yourselves. Wang Deying continued. Cut the crap. Do you think we had not thought about it before? People die for money, just like birds die in pursuit of food. I will bet on this chance afterwards. Do you think we brothers would still be in this area? Chunhu said while laughing. Do not talk nonsense. Since you are willing to teach them, then do not blame our brothers for being brutal. You all are most welcome to die. Immediately, a group of bandits from Qingfeng's stronghold shouted and rushed over, and the two leaders led those bandits, while laughing loudly, to kill everyone. Everybody kill! Wang Deying roared. He suddenly took a step and skimmed on the air. A long blade was drawn in, the cold tip of the blade illuminated, and a burst of twisting sword-shaped qi rushed towards Chunlong and Chun, who then chopped down. Qingfeng's stronghold two leaders took out their weapons, the wolf-tooth clubs, and used them to defend against the incoming blade attack. Boom! Long blade and wolf-tooth clubs fiercely clashed against each other, and the ferocious qi spread out from this collision, causing terrible winds to blow everywhere. Ha ha ha! I did not expect the so-called quick knife Wang Deying to be so weak. Chunlong laughed loudly while tying down Wang Deying. Ha ha ha! This quick knife is just so old man. You are very old. Chunhu's also laughed and said. Chunhu's big and sturdy wolf-tooth club swept away, breaking the bones of the firm guards who were in the range of this attack. What to do? These two are too strong. If nobody stops Chunhu, then we all will get massacred by him, a warrior said with a pale face. Rest of the warriors were scared. They definitely didn't have expected that they would actually encounter two leaders of the Qingfeng stronghold. This escort mission was definitely not simple. Suddenly a voice rushed out towards Chunhu. Chapter 31. NT. Expect Chapter 32 in few hours. Chapter 31. 5 blades to behead Chunhu bang. Chunhu laughed and smashed his club on a Qingfeng firm's guard and killed him. At this time, Wang Deying had been caught by Chunlong. Although Wang Deying's strength was tyrannical, but Chunlong was also at the peak of 8th stage and was more ferocious than Wang Deying. The famous quick knife Wang Deying could not get rid of the clutch of Chunlong and could only helplessly watch Chun, who's slaughtering everyone. Chunhu, come to die! Yi Shuwen gave a loud shout, slashing a long blade which was shining like a bright moon, and attacked him. Yi Shuwen had been entrusted by Qingfeng trading firm to protect everybody taking part in this escort mission. Not to mention the matter also involved Wang Lai's family, so Yi Shuwen would naturally lend a helping hand. Boom! The long blade and the wolf-tooth club severely clashed against each other, causing a loud sound of explosion. How is this possible? Chunhu's eyes flashed with astonishment. Hotian's 7th stage. Blade of a master of Hotian's 7th stage can actually have such power. Chunhu's eyes widened with astonishment. But no matter how much talented you are, you will die at my hands. Chunhu grinned and said, I would love to kill a genius like you. Chunhu's Wolf-Tooth Club danced in front of Yi Shiwen, and it seemed that it would crack his brain in a moment. Cold Moon Beheader. Yi Zaiwen's blade also chopped out, causing a burst of whirlwind everywhere. Boom! Both of their Jinqis severely clashed together, causing a shock wave, and the sand and pebbles flew out in all directions. Dang, dang, dang. Yi Shiwen had to withdraw a few steps because his strength was lesser than Chunhu. However, if only his cultivation was at the Hodian 8th stage, then he would easily have defeated Chunhu by now. Nt. Dang signifies stepping sound. Good boy. Chunhu withdrew 2 steps, and killing intention grew deeper in his eyes. Although his facial features were rough, but he was not stupid like other bandits, otherwise he would not be the leader of Qingfeng's stronghold. Wolf-Tooth Club attacked so fast and fiercely and smashed the air into 2 halves, and it seemed that if it had smashed into a man, then it would have absolutely turned him into a meat patty. Chunhu took few steps, then his whole huge body instantly flew into the air and severely smashed down from the midair. Shrill piercing sound echoed around Yi Shiwen, and the fierce wind caused by the huge club was stinging and quite painful for everyone. Yi Shiwen shouted, and his long blade danced. Although his strength was comparatively lesser, but both looked equally strong while fighting. Missing Moon Beheader. Yi Shiwen shouted, and his long blade danced violently. Boom! Chunhu was repelled by Yi Zaiwen's long blade and retreated several steps. Then he chopped down the second blade from Missing Moon Beheader. Chunhu's arm got numb from Yi Zaiwen's unexpected second blade attack. Bang! Third blade. Chunhu didn't get enough time to respond, and the third blade had already chopped down, causing his thick thighs to tremble. Bang! Fourth blade. Kara! Chunhu's leg was broken, and he started trembling. He could not hold himself, and fell down on the ground. What is this blade? Chunhu got frightened and said. Yi Zaiwen's blade technique was quite terrifying, because successive blades would overlap, causing the overall strength to increase by several times, forming a chain of quick and speedy blade attacks and displaying the superimposed power thoroughly. Missing Moon Beheader. Yi Shiwen shouted and chopped down the fifth blade, and it seemed as if the essence of the previous blades had concentrated in this final blade attack, giving it a terrifying power. Poochie! Yi Shiwen had cut Chunhu into 2 halves. All the eyes were stunned while looking at this scene. They were shocked to find out that the one who was split in half was actually that infamous leader Chunhu. Compared to Yi Shiwen, a Yuan school disciple, Chunhu had been infamous for many years because being a leader of Qingfeng's stronghold. His reputation was quite illustrious in this neighborhood. However, he had actually died at the hands of Yi Shiwen, and this result had shocked everyone. The mess caused by Yi Shiwen looked ferocious. Many of the warriors gasped, swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Crap, he is so ferocious. A warrior voiced the feelings of almost everyone. Chunhu, who had been infamous for so many years, but just how old was this Yi Shiwen? Not even 20 years old, but still had beheaded an infamous master of the peak 8th stage. He definitely would have a promising future ahead. Little brother, Chun Long shouted. Qingfeng trading firm, we brothers will kill all of you. Chun Long roared furiously at Wang Da-ying and threw his club at him mercilessly. You all are courting death. Do you think you can make a comeback now? After witnessing the beheading of Chunhu by Yi Shiwen, he was overjoyed. He moved quickly like a frantic whirlwind, and his sharp blade attacked very fast, which was almost comparable to Yi Zaiwen's New Moon Beheader, forming a blade windstorm. Wang Da-ying's strength was similar to the strength of Chunlong, but he was shocked at his younger brother's death and had become more violent. But Wang Da-ying's tactics and experience worked well against Chunlong's mindless attacks. After that, it took less than 10 strokes for Wang Da-ying's blade to behead Chunlong. With the 2 leaders beheaded, the rest of the bandits of Qingfeng's stronghold suddenly quit en masse. But Wang Da-ying had gotten quite furious from this. He suddenly shouted, "Kill all of these bastards!" Now that these bandits were without a leader, the warriors hired by the Qingfeng trading firm were more than enough to handle these bandits. Only after a little bit of effort, they had all been wiped out. After a while, all of the bandits had been beheaded by the warriors. By now, everyone had realized that completing this escort mission would not be an easy job. Many thanks, son, for for protecting our firm in danger. Wang Dang approached Yi Shiwen and said. His eyes were full of surprise because he had not expected this young man could actually behead Chen Hu. Although he himself was quite powerful, but he also knew that fighting both of those Chun brothers would have proved dangerous for him. However, he really did not expect this young man to be so useful in such a critical situation. I have been entrusted by Wang family to protect everyone involved in this escort mission, and I am also a childhood friend of Wang Lai, so helping out is obvious. Yi Shiwen said, So you are a friend of our fourth young master. Wang Daying had not expected for Wang Lai to be acquainted with such a powerful master. It seems calling someone from a Yuan school was a right decision. Anyway, this time you have helped our firm a lot, so wait until we arrive at Tianyuan City. There you receive a warm welcome. Yi Shiwen nodded. He had not shifted responsibility onto others. He worked so hard just for the sake of getting spirit stones. Chapter 32. Chapter 32, Tianyuan City sun had set, and the team had finally arrived at Tianyuan City at night. Being a city of 200,000 people, the walls were very tall, a full 10 meters in height, and after arriving at night, they saw many pedestrians on the streets. After their encounter with the Qingfeng stronghold bandits, the team was being very careful in the route to Tianyuan City, but did not encounter any danger, and had successfully arrived at Tianyuan City. After the group had arrived outside the city gate, Wang Daying cupped one hand into the other across the chest and said, This time you all have worked hard. We will pay everyone properly as promised. Injured and killed people will get additional compensation. Senior, you are so polite. This is something we do for a living. Suddenly many warriors said to Wang Daying, In any case, arriving safely at Tianyuan City could be considered as completing the mission successfully. Although they had not expected being attacked by Qingfeng stronghold bandits, but after that they didn't encounter any more bandits because seeing such a big parade, bandits didn't dare to approach them. They started lining up to enter the Tianyuan City gate. Wait a minute. What are those things you are carrying? I want to check. This time, a 30-year-old officer came over with few soldiers. Head officer, we are the escort team from Qingfeng trading firm. Wang Daying said, I don't care who you people are. I will inspect all the goods before you take them inside the city to confirm that there are no illegal items inside. The officer said rudely, Please don't joke around, head officer. These things have been sent by Qingfeng trading firm, so they are possibly be contraband goods. Wang Daying smiled and said, I have already decided, brothers, search for me. The officer commanded. Head officer, I do not know whose slanderous talks you are listening to, however. These herbs belong to the City Lord Palace. Are you sure you still want to inspect? Sensing the threatening attitude of head officer, Wang Daying also stopped showing any signs of weakness. City Lord Palace, my ass. It is the lousy government which protects the city, not the City Lord Palace. So go away, otherwise do no blame me for being impolite. The officer threatened. Wang Daying's complexion suddenly became gloomy as this officer unexpectedly belonged to the City Guard government. City Guard government and City Lord Palace were the two major systems active in the city. Some cities in Yu State were under the control of both the City Guard government and City Lord Palace, and some were individually ruled by each. Generally speaking, City Lord Palace and City Guard government were not on good terms. Struggle for power was a common thing. Although in theory the city belonged to the City Lord, but City Guard government was also working behind the scenes. So who actually was in charge of the entire city depended on their individual strengths. This situation was quite common in remote cities like Tianyuan City. Phew! Head officer suddenly heard a sharp piercing sound and arrived a sharp arrow flying and instantly shot through his head. Bang! The officer's head exploded. Red and white brains scattered everywhere. Idiot, a petty officer like you dares to look down upon City Lord Palace. A cold voice came over. People from Qingfeng trading firm. Sorry, I'm late. Everyone looked surprised. From a distance, a group of people were walking slowly towards them. This group was being led by a 20-year-old youth who was clad in a Chinese gown, holding a bow in his hands. Not at all, but I did not expect for the third son to personally come to receive us. Wang Ding bowed and said, This is the third son of City Lord Su Jun. The warriors said who knew about him. He is the genius son of City Lord, although he is just 25 years old and is already at the peak of Hotian 8th stage. Peak of Hotian 8th stage. My God! The killing of the head officer had already caused the City Lord Palace and City Guard government to become incompatible like fire and water. Many warriors were amazed. Even at the Yuan school, those who were able to achieve such results at this age were considered genius. Yi Shiwen also glanced at the third son who looked like a firm character, as he had instantly killed that officer mercilessly without thinking twice. My father was busy, so I came over. This escort mission of herbal medicine must have been hard for you all, Sujin said while smiling. This time we encountered Qingfeng's stronghold bandits. If not for Yi Shiwen, a disciple from Yuan school, we would have been in danger for sure. Wang Ding said, Yi Shiwen is the champion from this year's competition at Yuan school. So he is the outstanding disciple from Yuan school. No wonder, no wonder. After hearing in detail about the bandit incident from Wang Ding, Sujin could not help but feel amazed at Yi Ziwen's outstanding performance. Yuan school had an illustrious reputation in this neighborhood, and being able to become a champion among the inner disciples was not easy feat. There was no doubt that he was a true genius. We will now advance into the city, Sujin said. Yi Shiwen walked into the city, and the escorted herds were sent to City Lord Palace. Everyone was settled in an inn, and after having dinner, Yi Shiwen got the reward as agreed before. 3,000 low-grade spirit stones, a special reward of 1,000 low-grade spirit stones from Qingfeng Trading Firm, as well as 2,000 low-grade spirit stones as bonus from City Lord Palace, because he had beheaded Chun, who was an infamous bandit. So naturally, there was a huge bounty on him. All of a sudden, he had earned a total of 6,000 low-grade spirit stones. This amount was quite huge for other core disciples, but for him it was just a temporary relief. With these 6,000 low-grade spirit stones, the missing moon beheader could be practiced to Xiaoqing level. Then he would be able to chop out a series of 7 blades, and the attack power would also increase twice. Then he would be able to fight confidently even against a master of Hotian 9th stage. For others, these spirit stones were only to assist the cultivation and nothing more. But for Yi Shiwen, as long as there were enough spirit stones, his cultivation would continue to increase rapidly, and breaking into the next stage would not be a problem. Bold, who unexpectedly dares to rush into the City Lord Palace. Yi Shiwen was going to start cultivating, but suddenly he heard a loud shout which suddenly burst over the whole city and spread far and wide in all directions. Yi Shiwen suddenly reacted, because this definitely was the roar of a Xiantian master. As the inn was situated close to the Lord Palace, so he could listen to it very clearly. In Tianyuan City, there were only 2 Xiantian masters. One was the City Lord, and other was an individual from City Guard. Chapter 33. I will upload Chapter 34 in few hours. Chapter 33, Xiantian Pellet. Although there were more than 20 Xiantian experts in a Yuan school, but it took many years for the school to accumulate so many experts. In addition to that, a Yuan school was also backed by the Great Yu State, which was one of the 4 major schools. It also possessed numerous resources and wealth, which were far greater than other power when compared. Generally speaking, it was not easy for dozens of warriors at the peak of Hotian 9th stage to step into the Xiantian realm. However, if a Yuan school held such a huge influence, then the success rate would greatly enhance. A Xiantian expert was good enough to become the city guard of a small city. Obviously, the status of a Xiantian expert was quite high and extraordinary in the eyes of people. So, the one who had shouted this time was definitely the city lord. Haha, I had not expected that you still haven't refined a Xiantian pellet. I will come again next time. A frivolous laughter soon shook the entire city. So it was actually the Xiantian pellet. Everyone knew that it was very difficult to become a Xiantian expert. One needed to first open up the bridge between heaven and earth. Then second step was to break open the 2 meridians and allow the Zhen Qi to grow endlessly. Then only one would be able to enter the Xiantian realm. Only few experts could successfully enter the Xiantian realm. but there were some medicines to help in forcefully opening up the two meridians, and Xiantian pellet was one of the most famous ones. Naturally, it was evident that a lot of Hotian realm warriors were going to have a bloody war competing over the Xiantian pellets. The city lord was refining Xiantian pellets, and this news had spread throughout the city overnight. For a long time, City Lord Palace possessed the secret formula for refining Xiantian pellet, and had been secretly collecting the required medicinal ingredients. Now that the required ingredients had finally been collected, City Lord had successfully refined Xiantian pellets. Once this message was spread out, it would definitely attract many spies, especially a lot of Hodian 9th Stage masters, who would definitely not miss this opportunity to get a Xiantian pellet. Once a warrior entered into the Xiantian realm, his power would increase dramatically, and most importantly, his life force would also greatly enhance, causing the life expectancy to increase to 200 years. Many warriors of the Hodian 9th Stage were anxious because their lives were slowly approaching towards exhaustion, and if they did not find a way to reach the Xiantian realm, they would eventually die of old age. Whether it was to survive or to achieve great strength, these warriors would absolutely not let go of this chance to get a Xiantian pellet. So, there was going to be a bloody battle amongst them competing over this pellet. Even Yi Shiwen was interested in this Xiantian pellet. Originally, after finishing this escort mission, he had planned to return to the Yuan school, but now he had decided to stay and take a look at the situation. To Yi Shiwen, enhancing the strength was his top priority, because at his current strength, it would be difficult for him to handle a master of the Hodian 9th Stage, or even a Xiantian master. Right now, he was at the peak of Hodian 7th Stage. One more step, and he could break through to the Hodian 8th Stage. After that, he would be able to fight against the masters of the Hodian 9th Stage, and even give them a tough battle. For others, how could this breakthrough be so simple? But he had the special space, and as long as there were enough spirit stones, breaking through to the Hodian 8th Stage was simply not a problem for him. Yi Shiwen soon entered into the special space and started meditating. He started to practice the bright jade power. He did not know for how long the spirit stones continued to burn, producing the Ling Qi, which was continuously entering into the special space. Yi Shiwen started to get new insights about the bright jade power, which like a powerful torrent entered into his mind and caused a strong impact on the barrier of his current cultivation state. As the time passed, his strength also went on increasing constantly. Boom! He did not know how long it took for that torrent of information to completely break the barrier of his cultivation state. His body produced crackling sound. All of his bones were colliding with each other. His body was covered with filth, and he successfully reached the Hodian 8th Stage. Fewer impurities oozed out of his body compared to the last time when he had broken through to the Hodian 4th Stage. Although he had cultivated for a night, he was still full of energy because he had broken through to the Hodian 8th Stage, and now his strength had directly reached the strength of 70 tigers. His strength had experienced a rapid development, and now he was capable of beheading even the warriors of Hodian 9th Stage. Now he was powerful enough to participate in the coming Xiantian pellet competition. Overnight, the message spread among the numerous warriors in the city. I never thought City Lord was actually secretly refining a Xiantian pellet. Gee, wait until the City Lord uses this Xiantian pellet. Then there will be no room left for the city guard to dominate this city. However, this Xiantian pellet will attract many powerful experts, and even with the power of City Lord, I'm afraid they will be unstoppable. In the morning, all the warriors were discussing about this matter at the inn. Gee, have you not seen last night? Several famous experts of peak Hodian 9th Stage rushed into the city. Absolutely, this morning, I saw that great Qingqing City Lord personally came to request a Xiantian pellet for his only son. In a flash, a few days had already passed, and the news had gradually spread far and wide like a huge fire. Many famous masters had arrived, and this matter had even attracted the great Qingqing City Lord, a Xiantian expert. Qingfeng Mountain was located in the southwest region, far away from the central regions of Yu State, where a Xiantian expert would naturally attract the attention of everyone. Great Qingcheng was the nearest city from Tianyuan City, Its size and population were almost similar to that of Tianyuan City, and Qingqing City Lord was also a master of the Xiantian realm. Great Qingqing City Lord had come for the sake of his only son, who had been a master of the peak Hotian ninth stage for a long time. However, even if these famous masters had dared to arrive into the Tianyuan City, the City Lord had still remained silent. Every night many experts would try to sneak into the City Lord Palace, although most of them were quite miserable as City Lord Palace guards were very strict and would openly shoot arrows at them, killing many in the process. One night, 23 experts, who were trying to cause trouble, were killed at the City Lord Palace. Yi Shiwen was not too much concerned about this matter because he was concentrating on consolidating his newly obtained stage. In the room, Yi Shiwen took a long breath and opened his eyes. He had fully consolidated the newly obtained realm and had also successfully pushed a middle of Hotian 8th stage. Now he could easily face the masters of peak Hotian 9th stage. However, he had already consumed 1,500 low-grade spirit stones, leaving only 4,500 in his stock. Dash! Chapter 34. Chapter 34. Auction. Although 4,500 low-grade spirit stones still remained in his stock, but for Yi Shiwen, they were still not enough. The consumption rate of spirit stones was simply too high, and it had further increased with the increasing pace of cultivation. Since now he is at the 8th stage, and it takes a lot of spirit stones to break through at higher stages. Yi Shiwen got up early in the morning, but he did not continue to shut himself in the room. Rather, his plan was to visit the city's largest auction house, Tianyin Auction House. He wanted to visit the Tianyin Auction House because City Lord had finally made an official statement that he had successfully refined 4 Xiantian pellets, 2 for his personal use, and the rest 2 would be auctioned in the city's largest auction house, the Tianyin Auction House. The auction was going to start in 3 days. The Tianyin Auction House had already become the target of public discussions. If this was a general auction house, then it would not have lasted long in front of so many powerful warriors of the 9th stage. But Tianyin Auction House was quite influential. It had branches in many cities, and its headquarters was located in the capital city of Big State. It had a great influence in the Big State region, so how could these warriors cause trouble for it? Yi Shiwen was planning to go and take a look because this month at the Tianyin Auction House, someone might have something good to auction which might benefit him. Tianyin Auction House was very famous in Tianyuan town, so it was quite easy for Yi Shiwen to locate it. When he saw the Tianyin Auction House for the first time, he suddenly felt overwhelmed. No wonder it was called the largest auction house of the state. Weekdays were already very busy at Tianyin Auction House, and this time it was even more crowded due to the inflow of a large number of warriors. Fortunately, the inside of the auction house was very spacious. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for so many of those warriors to go inside and participate in the auction. As Yi Shiwen was about to go in, he was stopped by a guard saying it was required to pay the fee of 5 low-grade spirit stones before entering the auction house. Yi Shiwen suddenly got furious, but when he saw other people honestly paying the entrance fee, he did not say anything but paid the fee and entered the auction house. Yi Shiwen quickly took a seat. Tianyin Auction House held 10 or so auctions every day, and each auction continued for an hour, so one could enter any time and bid. He sat in the common seating area, and on the second floor there was a VIP reserved box where only honored guests could sit. Bang! The wooden mallet hit on the table, causing the sound to spread throughout the auction area. An old man in white robe appeared with few documents in one hand and holding a mallet in another. Yi Shiwen looked at the man and was stunned, because this white-robed old man was actually a master of the Hotian 9th stage. Tianyin Auction House was quite formidable, and had actually sent an expert of the 9th stage to manage the auction. However, in the past few days, City Lord's announcement about the Xiantian Pellets auction had attracted a lot of strong warriors to come to participate in the auction. If a master was not sent over to oversee these guys, then they would definitely destroy this city along with themselves. Thank you all for attending today's first auction in spite of your busy schedules. I believe that, like always, the auction organized by our auction house will not let you down. The white-robed old man said very slowly, "I believe everyone knows the rules, so I won't repeat them. Now we will immediately start the auction. The first item of this auction is a long double-edged sword made of high-quality alloy. It is also a high-grade weapon," the old man in white robes said. At this time, a maid approached holding a silver tray and put it on the table. The white-robed old man took off the red cloth from the silver tray, and all could see the fine workmanship of this light, red, long, double-edged sword lying quietly on the tray. Yi Shiwen had no use for this kind of sword, because what he had practiced was a blade technique which required a blade. Also, he felt that his own blade was far superior to this light, red, long sword. However, he had not noticed that there were a lot of people looking enviously at the man who had won the bidding and bought this double-edged long sword for 200 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Shiwen certainly knew that this was just an appetizer, and the real deal was yet to reveal itself. The Tianyin auction house continued the auction and brought awesome weapons or treasures one after the other, but none of these could win his heart and were practically useless to him. That is why he did not participate in the bidding for these items. Gradually, the people sitting in the VIP box began to bid one after the other in succession, and the price they were offering was very large as compared to those sitting in the common area. Those honored guests undoubtedly had a very distinguished and domineering aura compared to those common warriors sitting underneath in the common seating area. After about half an hour, suddenly the old man's words, explaining about the next auction item, piqued Yi Zaiwen's interest. "Next we will auction a secret book," the white-robed old man said with a smile. "It is a type power technique which is used to train the body, and according to our appraisers, it is possibly a Xiantian level power technique, but unfortunately it is incomplete. However, it is also no less than an intermediate level power technique." Then he opened up the red cloth, and everyone saw a somewhat tattered secret book. The inscription over it said Tyrant Body Technique NT. This power technique will strengthen his body, like that of a Tyrant-level master. The minimum price for this Tyrant Body Technique has been set to 200 low-grade spirit stones. The old man in white robes said, "If it was a complete Xiantian level power technique, then the price of 200 lower-grade spirit stones was literally negligible compared to its actual worth, and anyone would have eagerly paid for it. However, it was an incomplete technique and could only be considered an intermediate power technique, which was a serious flaw, and no one wanted to pay 200 low-grade spirit stones for a mere intermediate power technique. However, this secret book was a waste of money, spirit stones, for others, but for Yi Shiwen, this was a God-sent gift. He had tried before and had successfully deduced the original missing parts of Celestial Step's secret book. So as long as there were enough spirit stones in his possession, he would be able to completely deduce a Xiantian level power technique, even if it was damaged or incomplete. Right now, he just lacked a physical training type power technique. NT. Physical training equals training the body. He has Celestial Step for agility, Cold Moon Beheader is a blade technique, and Bright Jade power for cultivation. 350 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Shiwen took the lead and shouted, 400. As Yi Zaiwen's voice faded, a loud voice came from the VIP box. 410. Yi Shiwen added 10 more and said, 500. That honored guest in the VIP box added a larger number. 500 low-grade spirit stones were enough to buy even some advanced power techniques. This honored guest had a lot of money, but no better place to spend. 550. Yi Shiwen clenched his teeth and said, 600. The other party increased the bid yet again. Only Yi Shiwen and the honored guests were left on the scene bidding for that secret book. And as far as those warriors were concerned, the cost of 600 low-grade spirit stones to buy a damaged power technique was totally incomprehensible. Regarding those honored guests sitting in the VIP box, they would highly unlikely buy a mere intermediate level power technique. So in the end, only Yi Shiwen and that other honored guest were bidding for the secret book. Chapter 35. Chapter 35. Ambush 650. Yi Shiwen said and increased the bid yet again, although this amount was already quite high for a damaged power technique. Even a complete advanced power technique would only cost not more than 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. 700. The other side was definitely not short on money and increased the bid. At this time, many people were already very excited, as if watching a theatrical play. 800. Yi Shiwen clenched his teeth and said, because this was the most he could pay for this secret book. And if the other party increased the bid, then he would have no other choice but to give up, as going any far would be uneconomical for him. Bastard. Who is this person daring to compete with me? Inside the box, seeing that Yi Shiwen had unexpectedly continued to compete for the secret book, a young man got suddenly furious and threw down the teacup from his hand. He often liked to set the initial price on auction items and enjoyed others competing over them. However, this time, Yi Shiwen had not just dared to compete with him, but had also stolen the limelight by setting the initial bidding price for this item. I want to know who this guy really is, and then I will personally chop him into pieces, the young man said. Even though this item was an incomplete power technique, but he did not care. He had decided to buy it on a whim, but someone had dared to openly challenge him, and this had made him very angry. Young master, we cannot continue to bid because before coming here, your father had informed us that our goal is the Sciention pellet, which is going to be auctioned in a few days. So compared to this damaged Sciention power technique, a Sciention pellet is much more important for you. As long as you can become a Sciention master, our main objective will be achieved. However, if we spend too much on other auction items, then I'm afraid we might get short on money for the Sciention pellet. The old man accompanying this young man admonished him. Let it be. The young master does not need to lower himself to his level. We have already seen his face. He has actually dared to challenge our young master. We will make him die a dog's death, and in the end that item will fall into your hands. Ha ha ha. The several guards who were assigned to protect this young man said. The young man didn't continue the bidding, and Yi Shiwen finally bought the secret book for 800 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Shiwen lightly patted the secret book, but after he had obtained this secret book, he discovered that the young man in the VIP box was unexpectedly the son of Great Qingqing City Lord Zhao Qiyin. Great Qingqing City Lord had especially come to help Zhao Qiyin in obtaining the Sciention pellet. However, even if he knew that the other party was not someone he could easily trifle with, but he still did not flinch. Yi Shiwen was not a soft person who would passively endure if someone was to bully him, and if the other party wanted to fight, then he would definitely give them a hard time. After the auction was over, he left the auction house, but only after a moment he sensed that someone was following him. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen felt tight in his heart. After arriving at the Tianyuan city, he certainly hadn't offended anyone. Then the only possibility could be that son of Great Qingqing City Lord Zhao Qiyin. Yi Shiwen stayed calm and collected and simply entered an alley. Several figures revealed and were exactly that Zhao Qian's bodyguards. Experts? Yi Shiwen was firmly staring at the Great Qingqing experts. Then in a blink of an eye, suddenly his figure disappeared, which also shocked those bodyguards. The 4 experts from Great Qingqing City, who were previously concealing their presence, finally revealed themselves. Not good. Don't let that kid get away. Catch him. Immediately, an expert of big stature advanced violently and chased after Yi Shiwen. Although originally they were quite far enough from Yi Shiwen when he had vanished, but considering their speeds, this distance was really not too long. Only after a while, they appeared inside that alley where Yi Shiwen had disappeared to. How can he vanish like that? Damn. Don't tell me he had realized that we were tracking him, a bodyguard said with frustration. No, he didn't. We 4 had deliberately hidden our presence. Also, he was 100 meters away from us, so he couldn't possibly sense us. Another bodyguard said. Not good. Damn it, this kid was deliberately not hiding his presence, because he wanted us to let our guard down and reveal ourselves out in open. A tall and strong bodyguard suddenly reacted and said. The complexion of other 3 experts had slightly changed. These experts were all veterans. They were not fools and reacted quickly, although they didn't know if Yi Shiwen had intentionally concealed his presence or not, but there was still a possibility. Now it's too late, Yi Shiwen said in an icy cold voice. He was standing on a brick wall in the alley. I never thought that the son of the Great Qingqing City Lord would actually do such a thing. And if the news about it spreads out, then won't he turn into a laughing stock? Yi Shiwen frowned as he sensed that all of these 4 bodyguards were actually the masters of the Hotian 9th stage. Who do you think you are? You have dared to challenge our young master. So be prepared for the worst, kid. A guard sneered and said, Stop talking nonsense and kill this kid. Do not let the young master wait for too long. Another guard said impatiently, Trying to kill me? With just 4 of you? Yi Shiwen took few steps, and then his figure swept down the brick wall like a storm and rushed towards the 4 guards. He pulled out his long blade and chopped down, and then appeared a violent Daoqi which instantly turned into 9 blade shadows and spread into the sky. A bodyguard got surrounded by these blade shadows. NT, Daoqi equals blade chi. How is this possible? A horrified look flashed in the eyes of that bodyguard. He was very scared in his heart because this blade attack was very frightening. And this kid had actually practiced his blade technique to the Desheng level. Although these bodyguards had already reached the Hodian 9th stage, but not even one of them had practiced a technique to the Desheng level. These masters were already at the 9th stage, but their strengths was still lacking when compared to Yi Ziwen's monstrous strength. Although Yi Shiwen had only reached the 8th stage, but thanks to him practicing multiple Xiantian power techniques and consuming monkey liquor, he was already capable of contending against masters of the peak 9th stage. Unfortunately, these guards could never be his opponents because they had not even practiced the advanced power techniques. Pucci! The bodyguard had no time to respond and was directly cut in half by Yi Ziwen's blade attack. From the eyes of a bystander, it looked as if he simply stood there and allowed Yi Shiwen to kill him. However, the fact was that he was totally surrounded by Yi Ziwen's blade attack and had no way left to escape. He could only watch himself getting beheaded. Third brother! The remaining 3 guards shouted with grief. Let's kill him together. In a blink of an eye, a warrior of the 9th stage had been killed, so it was obvious that those guards felt immense horror in their hearts. But their intention to kill had also grown thicker. If this young enemy was already so powerful, then how much terrifying he might become in the future. Immediately, the 3 bodyguards stood in a formation, creating a triangular envelope, and pounced towards Yi Shiwen. 10 or more steps away, each of these 3 bodyguards had drawn out a long blade and chopped out their blades towards Yi Shiwen. NT, I know it's a cliffhanger, so wait a few more hours for Chapter 36. Yi Shiwen seized more than 2,000 low-grade spirit stones from the body of the 4 bodyguards. These stones were enough to make up for the loss that he had to face during the bidding competition with Zhao Qiyan, and now his stock of low-grade spirit stones also went up to 6,000. Yi Shiwen went back to the inn and immediately began to cultivate to be fully prepared for the major auction which was going to begin in 3 days. Yi Shiwen immediately began to cultivate Tyrant Body Technique according to the description given in the secret book. The technique focused on training the mortal flesh and body, which would eventually turn the Buddhist constitution to that of an evil god's. It was believed that this technique had been practiced since ancient times and was also considered as one of the most tough-to-practice techniques. However, since the secret book was damaged, so only the first layer could be practiced. Although there was only 1 layer intact, but when the power was taken into consideration, then it was not at all inferior to other intermediate-level power techniques. Tyrant Body Technique, as the name suggested, was so overbearing and powerful that after practicing it, Yi Shiwen would not be able to practice any other body training techniques, and he also won't need to. The reason why this technique was put out for auction by Tianyin Auction House was that it only had the first layer intact, and regardless of being the great Tyrant Body Technique, how much one could expect from only the first layer. Since it only had 1 layer intact, it was pretty good for an average warrior who could practice it as an intermediate power technique. Also for the giant auction houses like Tianyin Auction House, this incomplete technique was a bit useless as they possessed many other body training techniques. But for Yi Shiwen, it was the most suitable power technique. Even if it had only the first layer intact, but it was actually comparable to intermediate level techniques. For others, Tyrant Body Technique was nothing more than a damage technique, which was comparable to only the mere intermediate level techniques. But Yi Shiwen was capable of deducing the missing original parts of this technique in the special space. As long as he possessed enough spirit stones, Practicing this technique to its peak level would not be a problem for him. With the continuous combustion of spirit stones, Yi Shiwen entered the special space and started to practice tyrant body technique, and suddenly all of its secrets started to flow into his mind. He felt as if his body was being torn apart and restructuring, tearing and recombining. His flesh was being torn off, and the cells were restructuring themselves according to a mysterious structure. His face turned blue with pain, and cold sweat was dripping off his forehead because practicing tyrant body technique was way more painful than he had imagined. It was as if he was being torn alive, and then he felt that he was being restructured. For normal experts, this pain could have been so unbearable that they would have definitely fainted by now. Although it was extremely painful, but he did not stop because he could clearly feel his strength was improving rapidly. This feeling was even more vigorous compared to the time when he had consumed the monkey wine. To him, this tearing pain was unbearable and made him to see the illusion of him being dropped into both the heavenly ice and fire. Time passed slowly. 1 second, 1 minute passed, but he only found himself suffering from pain and also feeling fully delighted at the same time due to the sudden power surge inside his body. Boom! As if a barrier was broken, Yi Shiwen heard a crackling sound, and his strength had developed tremendously. He already had a strength of 70 tigers, which unexpectedly increased by 20. Even the strength of the masters of the Haute Eon 9th stage was far lower compared to Yi Ziwen's current strength of 90 tigers. And he had only practiced the first layer of tyrant body technique. Yi Shiwen reckoned that if the first layer of tyrant body technique was practiced to the Xiaoqing realm, then he would definitely break through to the power of the dragons, and then he would also be able to fight against Xiantian masters. Dragon race was the world's most formidable ethnic group. However, the purebred dragon clans had already disappeared in ancient times, leaving only some inferior dragon species where wyverns were one of rare ones. Once the strength of a warrior broke through the strength of 90 tigers, then his strength was compared with the strength of the wyverns. Masters of the peak Haute Eon 9th stage possessed the strength of 99 tigers. However, Yi Shiwen reckoned that once he would reach the Xiaoqing realm of the first layer of the tyrant body technique, then he would directly break through to the power of a dragon. NT. Wyvern species of a dragon. As expected, tyrant body technique was really a kick-ass technique. Yi Shiwen felt that buying it was not a wrong decision, although he had ended up annoying Zhao Qian, but he had no regrets. NT. Nyobi equals kick-ass. NT. This chapter was a pain in the ass to translate with many redundant explanations. You may have some doubts, so feel free to ask. Chapter 37. Chapter 37. Competition in the auction house. As the days passed, more and more warriors continued to arrive at the Tianyuan city. In addition to the great Qingqing city lord, 2 other big shots also arrived in the last 2 days. They were the lords of Bloody Hand School and Black Magic Valley. Both of them were the great experts of Xiantian realm and held quite an illustrious reputation in the neighboring schools. They had come for the sake of the outstanding disciples from their respective schools and were going to request the city lord palace for a Xiantian pellet. However, when they came to know that the Xiantian pellets were going to be auctioned, they decided to compete for the pellets at the Tianyin auction house. Early in the morning, Yi Shiwen went to the Tianyin auction house, where the major auction of Xiantian pellets was going to take place. Compared to a few days ago, the auction house was completely packed with people this time. An overwhelming number of warriors had gathered outside the auction house, and this situation was quite troublesome for the guards. However, a scene like this was not uncommon whenever a major item was auctioned at the Tianyuan auction house. Those who caused trouble were directly thrown out of the Tianyin auction house and were also banned from attending the auction. However, this situation was not a problem for Yi Shiwen. He directly used the celestial step and shuttled inside the auction house. He paid the required amount of spirit stones and received his seating pass. Yi Shiwen just walked into the commoner's passage and caught a sudden glimpse of a large group of honored guests walking through the VIP passage. This group was being led by a middle-aged man, clad in blood-red Chinese robe, and he also carried a bloody aura around him. The smell of blood had spread everywhere inside the auction hall, and his hands were big and scarlet-colored. Behind him followed a young man wearing blood-stained clothes. He had a pale complexion, as if recovering from some serious illness, and there was a cold and gloomy look in his eyes. His hands were also scarlet-colored like the middle-aged man. Everyone quickly hide. These are the people from Bloody Hand School. And its lord in Yuan has personally brought his brigade. Gee, this auction of the Xiantian pellets has attracted many big shots. That guy who is following in Yuan is actually his favorite disciple, and Yunpeng. And Yuan has personally come to buy a Xiantian pellet for him. Yes, he's right. Look at his scarlet hands. This blood hand technique requires the person to train his hands to bear and control a considerable amount of heat. And I have also heard that this martial art requires the blood of the living. No one knows how many talented people have been massacred by him. Hush, hush. Do you want to die? Don't you know those are all depraved warriors? The people in the crowd were talking in whispers. Just now, I saw that the Lord of the Black Magic Valley has also arrived. Exactly. This time, all these influential experts are going to compete for Xiantian pellets. Yi Shiwen did not have to wait for too long and quickly found his seat. He closed his eyes, waiting for the auction to start. After about half an hour, the auction finally started. We welcome all of you all to participate in this auction. The auctioneer this time was the same white-robed old man from the last time. We all know why everybody has come to attend today's auction. So without wasting any time on useless talks, let us start today's auction. Compared to the last time, the quality of the auction items was very high this time. This double-edged sword, named by Shui, is made of 1,000 years old cold iron. Our auction house has brought for you this outstanding work of a great master, and its starting price is 2,000 low-grade spirit stones. In front of the old man, a blue-colored double-edged sword was lying quietly on top of a platinum tray. The sword blade was cold, as ice causing the surrounding air to condense. It was evident that this ice-cold sword was a magic weapon. And T by Shui means blue jade snow. Compared to the previous auction items, the quality had significantly improved this time. However, Yi Shiwen was not interested in swords. What he had practiced was a blade technique for which he used a long blade. And there was a great difference between a blade and a sword, so no matter how good the sword actually was, it was of no use to him, even if he was not interested. But there were a lot of people who were very much interested, and this time, the warriors who had come to attend this auction were quite rich. 2,300, 2,500, 3,000. The auction lasted for 2 minutes, and Bai Shui's sword was finally sold at the price of 4,500 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Shiwen was speechless at the huge amount that the experts were willing to pay for this sword. One after the other, the Tianyin auction house continued to auction some nice weapons and treasure items. But none of these auction items could attract Yi Ziwen's attention, and so he did not compete for them. Of course, the most important reason was that these items were very expensive and he could not afford them. He was waiting for something which could interest him and was also affordable. Gradually, the honored guests seated in the VIP box also began to compete. Compared to the people sitting in the common area, these guests, undoubtedly, possessed an extraordinary aura, and the prices they were offering were also off the charts. But then an auction item suddenly attracted Yi Ziwen's attention. Next, we want to auction an inner armor. This armor stems from the hands of a great expert. It is woven out of golden cicada silk, and swords or spears find it hard to pierce it. Also with this inner armor, I guarantee the personal safety to anyone who wears it, the white-robed old man said with a smile. Then he uncovered the red cloth, and everyone saw a snow-white inner armor quietly lying on top of the tray. The bidding for this armor will start at 4,000, the white-robed old man said. The thing was that these defense-type items were comparatively more expensive than the offense-type weapons. Generally, weapons were not so expensive, but since this inner armor guaranteed the safety of life, so it was comparatively more expensive. 5,500. Yi Shiwen shouted and took the lead. He was very much interested in this body armor, although he knew that he probably won't be able to get his hands on it. After all, he possessed limited financial resources, but he still wanted to give it a try. 8,000. As soon as Yi Zaiwen's voice faded, an arrogant young voice shouted immediately. Arrogance was clearly visible in the voice that had increased the bidding price instantly by 2,500. Yi Shiwen frowned, but what could he do, as this kind of insane auctioning was quite normal at the Tianyin auction house. He looked towards the auction stage where the white-robed old man was smiling. Yi Shiwen finally recognized this voice, which actually belonged to the arrogant son of great Qingqing city lord, Zhao Qiyan. 9,000. Another honored guest seated in the VIP box shouted and increased the bid. Looking at the position of his seat, he clearly belonged to the Black Magic Valley. 10,000. Zhao Qiyan spoke again in a triumphant tone. 12,000. The young master of the Black Magic Valley said, who also had an arrogant appearance. 15,000. Zhao Qiyan spoke again, as if he did not care about money at all. At last, the young master of the Black Magic Valley had to concede, and Zhao Qiyan bought the inner armor. Dash. Chapter 38. Chapter 38. Climax. Next, we want to auction the 2 Xiantian pellets for which everybody has come here. I assume everyone present here knows the importance and use of a Xiantian pellet. When someone swallows a Xiantian pellet, then his chances of successfully breaking through to the Xiantian realm will be increased by 50%. The starting price for 1 Xiantian pellet will be 20,000 low-grade spirit stones. The white-robed old man said. At last, the auction of Xiantian pellet began. 40,000. Zhao Qiyan was the first to bid once again. He wanted to quell everyone in one swoop. 45,000. At this time, a voice broke in and suddenly blew everyone's enthusiasm. 50,000. 53,000. Suddenly, the honored guests seated in the VIP box started to bid one after the other. Xiantian pellet was the main goal of these Xiantian level masters, so how could they miss this opportunity? At this time, besides the honored guests seated in the VIP box, other people, sitting in the common area, were basically reduced to mere spectators. Such a high price, they were not even qualified to get involved. 70,000. Zhao Qiyan again said in a triumphant voice. By this time, many people had already stopped bidding, seeing the high price set by Zhao Qiyan. Only the major powers were still competing. 85,000. Representing the Bloody Hand School, this time, and Yunpeng finally spoke. He was the first person other than Zhao Qiyan who had directly increased the bid by 10,000 in one statement. 150,000. Our city guard government is willing to pay 150,000 low-grade spirit stones, so I hope you will give us face. This time, a middle-aged man's voice spread out. He was actually the head of city guard government. Because the city lord palace and city guard government were never on good terms with each other, no one had expected that city guard government would actually come to participate in the auction of Xiantian pellets. But they were willing to pay a huge amount of 150,000 low-grade spirit stones, which was not a small sum. All the forces were silent for a moment and did not continue to increase the bid. They did not fear the city guard government, but the Great Yu royal government which backed the city guard government in the Tianyuan city. These forces were rampant in the nearby regions of the Qingfeng Mountain, and the government officials could not do anything to stop them. But they knew very well that it was because Qingfeng Mountain and nearby regions were located at the border regions of the Great Yu State and were far away from the central regions. Since no one was here to keep an eye on them, they could run amok without caring about anyone or anything. But city guard government was here on behalf of the Great Yu royal government. Even killing the Tianyuan city lord was not a big deal to them, but if they killed the city guard, then they will have to face the thundering fury of the Great Yu royal government. It was widely known that Great Yu royal government used to hide its shortcomings by indiscriminately massacring all of the people who posed threat to them or disrespected them. Moreover, the government had formed a conquering army specifically to deal with these rogue schools, excluding the Yuan school and a few other huge forces which did not fear the Great Yu royal government. So it was quite obvious why no one wanted to disrespect the city guard government. City guard government awed the audience by buying the first Xiantian pellet for 150,000 low-grade spirit stones. After the first Xiantian pellet was sold, The second one attracted more competition from countless people. But how could anyone compete against the financial resources of Great Qingqing City Lord, Black Magic Valley, and the most violent Bloody Hand School? The other bidders got eliminated almost immediately when the bidding amount crossed 100,000 low-grade spirit stones. 130,000. This time, the young master of the Black Magic Valley spoke and increased the bid. I hope you will give us face, and in the future, we will also give you face. You're idiot. Do you think your face is made of gold, eh? The young master of Great Qingqing City said with disdain. As for Tianyuan City Guard government, he had some fear, but he didn't fear the Black Magic Valley at all. 150,000. Zhao Qian said in a victorious manner. Zhao Qian, so you plan to compete with me? The young master of the Black Magic Valley said. Wen Qingxing was a handsome young man, but this time, his handsome face was covered with haze and was radiating a dense, gloomy feeling. So what? Zhao Qian did not care. 160,000. A sudden a voice spread out from the reserved box of Bloody Hand School. The little master in Yunpeng gave out an evil smile while supporting his chin on his bloody hands and said, I'm sorry you too, but I am also interested in a Xiantian pellet. Seeing the price for the second Xiantian pellet had surpassed the first one, Yi Shiwen felt that something was strange. The young masters of these three forces were continuously increasing the bidding price, but the elders were very tolerant and said nothing, as if they did not even exist. But Yi Shiwen could clearly sense that these three forces had terrible aura surrounding them, which was definitely not similar to his father's aura. Although Yi Kongming was also a Xiantian master, but Yi Shiwen had never felt such an unfathomable aura from his father. 180,000. Wen Qingxing said in deep voice. 200,000. Zhao Qian immediately said, as if he simply did not care about money. But it really was true to say that when the money was taken into consideration, then Great Qingqing City Lord was the richest among the bidders. His clan received 80% of the city taxes and owned more than one-third of the businesses in the Qingqing City. And it was impossible for anyone to compete against the Qingqing City Lord when money was involved. Sure enough, as Yi Shiwen had expected, when Qingxing and in Yunpeng had abandoned the competition, Zhao Qian had finally won and received a small red bag containing the last Xiantian pellet. This Xiantian pellet auction finally came to a close. But Yi Shiwen knew that the real play had only just begun and this competition had not yet ended. There were only a few people left at the auction house. The city guard government had hastily evacuated while being escorted by a large number of soldiers. And after buying the second Xiantian pellet, Great Qingqing City Lord also left quietly. Yi Shiwen also quietly got up and went out of the auction house, and not far from the auction house, he saw the Great Qingqing City people hastily walking away to leave the city as soon as possible. However, Bloody Hand Door and Black Magic Valley Lords, with their own teams, were also following from behind. Yi Shiwen now understood very well that the earlier auction was just a prelude, and the real climax was going to begin only now. Obviously, everyone was aware of this truth, but no one wanted to be a part of a deadly battle. Tianyuan City Guard government was heavily protected, and security naturally was not a problem for them, but for the Great Qingqing City Lord and his people, things were going to take a bad turn. NT, expect the next 2 chapters in few hours. That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.